right, we're back. Phonogenics 101, maybe renamed Phonogenics 101. We're all Faye. We're here to talk about side 2 of Joni Mitchell's Hejira album. This is our first two-parter on the podcast, but there was so much to talk about that we didn't want to rush it. And yeah, here we are. But before we get into things, Chris has a retraction to make from last week.
I do. When we were talking about the song Amelia, what came up was how much everybody loved it, and the critics, for the most part, just gushed all over it and thought it was really one of the stronger songs that not only on this album, but that Joni Mitchell ever wrote. And I attributed a rather an amazing review to, from one reviewer. I attributed it to a man named Robert Christgau. And he was the esteemed music critic for the Village Voice. The man whose review I was citing for both the original Hejira album as well as the subsequent revisit to the same song, Amelia, on Travelogue. The same writer did cover it for the New York Times, and his name was John Rockwell. So please, my apologies to Robert Christgau, and please concern any comment that I might have made during that discussion to John Rockwell from the New York Times.
Perfect. So before we get going on discussion, we are going to have a video flown in from our friend Paz, who is going to do Song for Sharon. So we're going to watch that now.
So this is for Jimmy Stewart, and I'd also like to recall Bob Murphy, wherever you are. I think about you often doing Blue as Ethel Merman. I gotta send that to you sometime, Jeremy. It's a great cover.
Your vocals gone really quiet.
Staten Island, Sharon, to buy myself a mandolin. And I saw the long white dress of love on a storefront mannequin. Big boat checkerback with a belly full of cars, all for something lazy. Some girls gonna see that dress and crave that day like crazy. Little Indian kids on a bridge up in Canada, they can balance and they can climb like their fathers before them. They walk the girders of the Manhattan skyline. Shine your light on me, Miss Liberty. As soon as this ferry boat docks, I'm headed to the church to play bingo. Please me with the gambler's floss. Emotion, what I'm feeling's always written on my face. It's a gypsy down on Baker Street. I went in to see her as a kind of joke. She lit a candle for my love locket. $18 went up in smoke. I'd be accustomed to. Well, I do accept the changes, at least better than I used to do. A woman I knew just drowned herself. The well was deep and muddy. She was just shaking off futility or punishing somebody. My friends were calling up all day yesterday. All emotions and abstractions. It seems we all live so close to that line, but so far from satisfaction. Doris says have children. Mama and Betsy say find yourself a charity. Help the needy and the crippled, and put some time into ecology. A wide, wide world of noble causes and lovely landscapes to discover. But all I want to do right now is find another lover. Every wedding in that little town. See the tears and the kisses and the pretty lady in the white lace wedding gown. Walking home on the railroad tracks, swinging on the playground swing. Love stimulated my illusions more than anything. When I went skating after Golden Reggie, you know it was white lace I was chasing dreams. Mama's nylons underneath the cowgirl jeans. Show me first, you get the kisses, and then you get the tears. But the ceremony of the bells and lace still veils this reckless fool here. Now there are 29 skaters on Woman Ring, circling in singles and in pairs. In this vigorous anonymity, a blank face at the window stares and stares and stares and stares. The power of reason, the flowers of deep feelings seem to serve me only to deceive me. Sharon, you got a husband and a family and a farm. I got the apple of temptation and a diamond snake around my arm. You still have your music. I've still got my eyes on the land and the sky. You sing for your friends and your family. I'll walk green pastures by and by.
All right. So speaking of Song for Sharon, at this point, this was the longest Joni Mitchell song on any of her albums, correct? 8 minutes plus?
Yep.
80 lines of lyrics.
80 lines of lyrics, and she hadn't done anything like this to this point. Of course, one album later, she'd leave this one in the dust with Paprika Plains, taking up the whole side of the album.
There aren't that. Paprika Plains is long, but it doesn't have as many lyrics as this.
Right. So of all of Joni Mitchell's catalog, is this the most lyrics in a Joni Mitchell song?
I'd say so.
Don Juan's Reckless Daughter maybe has more.
Okay.
That's dense too.
You see, I love that song so much, and it never seems long enough to me. Don Juan's Reckless Daughter.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
But we still have them. I guess we better not jump ahead. We still have a month to go on that one. All right. So who wants to start off talking about song about Sharon? Song for Sharon. It's such a dense song. It's hard to. Okay, Mark.
Okay, I will. Dave mentioned that it was a lot of words for Robin to memorize, and it sure is. For me, it's not just a rambling thing. There's a train of thought to it, and each verse kind of leads into the next. And that's at least that's the way I think of it. And when I sing it to myself, I try and remember those connections, and usually I can get through it. And to me, it's kind of an explanation of this part of Joni's psyche about romantic love and the whole concept of marriage being this wonderful romantic thing, and weddings being so beautiful, and the ceremony of the bells and lace still veils this reckless fool here, in spite of Golden Reggie giving her the kisses and then the tears. And this, I don't know, there's a lot more to it than that, but I think for me the central theme is why she's so hooked into this, and why, well, actually so many people. I remember when I was a kid, I went to my cousin's wedding, and I just was fascinated by the whole thing. And I think a lot of people get hooked into that. I think women especially, with the white lace wedding gown and all the planning that goes into it. And it's this sort of mythical thing that isn't necessarily what you think it is. And sometimes later in life you find out, and it hurts a lot.
It's just a repetitious danger.
Yes.
in the words of our friend.
Well,
So-
of course.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the song's about her relationship with her Saskatoon, Saskatchewan friend Sharon Bell, who would grow up to become Sharon Veer, who I actually am Facebook friends with. And Sharon did get married, have a family and a farm, a lot of kids. It's a really tight-knit family. You know, they're crazy about Sharon. And Sharon, you know, she was actually a musician. So Joni said at one point, you know, Joni wanted to be the person on the plains, on the farm, and Sharon's going to be the musician. And then obviously at an early point in their ages, they switched courses, and Sharon became the family. Joni, of course, went on to her music career. Sharon did, however, put out an album, which I have.
Really?
It's if the light's not on it, Sharon Veer. She became Sharon Veer when she got married. So Sharon Veer, it's called Yesterday's Dreams. You can see she's autographed it for me.
Wow.
And she put a cover of Both Sides Now on it.
When was that released, Bob?
It was mid 70s. I want to say 74, 75. I mean, I can't look at it because I've got it here, but if you want to, you can go onto my covers database, and that fact will be in my database.
So
the,
that
Joni
came out
undercover.
before Joni's song was written, then.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
You've still
But
got
she's
your
a really,
music.
really nice lady. I've had some little short conversations with her, and, you know, she's a super sweet lady. It's such a contrast to see the photographs. She didn't post on Facebook, but every year her birthday rolls around, she's got a picture of her and her husband and all their kids surrounding them and grandkids. And this great big loving family, you know, that Joni never had, never will have. And Sharon's like, yep, both of us found our happiness in two different ways.
I think we had the same birthday, if I remember right.
Oh, yeah. And when I saw her in Atlanta in 98, she played this song. It was one of the few nights she played this song on tour. I think she only did it 2 or 3 shows. And she called it Song for Sharon Bell when she introduced it.
How is her album? Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, it was fine. It's just a pretty basic little singer, guitarist, singer album.
You saw Sharon play this song?
No,
Oh, you saw
I
Jeremy.
have her album where she plays the song on it.
Uh-huh.
You see, she should have had a song for Joni on her album. So then
That would be some tough competition, though.
Did she have anything autobiographical on her record? Lyrically.
Not that I recall. I mean, if you want to learn more about her, the best you can do is get that paperback book where that's like poetry and interviews of different people. I forget what the name of the book is. I can run downstairs and get it. But she's got a pretty good interview in that book talking about her relationship with Joni Mitchell at a very young age, and all that. So.
It's something light. I can't remember what the first word of the title is.
Yeah, Gathered Light.
Gathered Light.
Yeah.
Yep, I have
The
that.
Gathered Light book has a really nice profile of her because Les reached out to me and says, Bob, Sharon, you need to do an interview with her. I said, well, Les, she's pretty much already spilled the story in this Gathered Light book. So, I'll turn you down because I think it's already been done. And I'm sure that nobody wants to be interviewed as, oh, Joni Mitchell. It's like, oh, you got a life of your own, right? I mean, tell me about your family, about your accomplishments. Not just that Joni Mitchell. You have things to say on your own right.
So something that blows my mind a little bit, did all these characters from Joni's songs, like, were they all hanging out in the same spot? Like, was Sharon hanging out with Cherokee Louise and Emmy Maid from Harlem and Havana? Like, all the characters in her songs, they're all from the same little town.
Yeah, I know that Sharon was a childhood friend, so I don't know if she was still around when Joni was a teenager or not.
Right.
Yeah, when we were kids in Maidstone, which was before they moved to Saskatoon, and that's where Cherokee Louise was.
Oh, okay.
Broadway Bridge.
So how far is Saskatoon from Maidstone? Does anyone know?
Ways.
Okay.
And
She also mentions Doris and Betsy in the song too. Do you know anything about that? Doris, who's supposed to have children, and Betsy, who's supposed to find yourself a charity.
Betsy is Peter Asher's wife, right?
Yeah.
She pops up on this song and then also again on Wild Things Run Fast. Betsy's blue. She says, "Tell me something good."
Oh,
so yeah, Betsy is Peter Asher's wife.
Somewhere I heard somebody said that Dora was the housekeeper that she kept in the shoe. I don't know if that's true or not.
The Windfall housekeeper?
Yeah.
What's that? Oh. The Windfall. Yeah.
Wow.
I don't know if that's true or not.
Yeah, when I first got this album, I think this was probably my least favorite song because it just was a lot.
Yeah.
And it doesn't change too much. It doesn't build. It just kind of keeps going and going and going. And that's eventually what I loved about it. Once you really get into the lyrics and the story and the imagery and stuff. But this is definitely a dense song.
In that respect, it's a true folk song with the stanza after stanza and no development or bridge or anything. And that was the traditional folk song form. So although it's a stretch to say that Joni Mitchell played folk music anytime after about 1965, she still wrote often in the folk music form. Amelia, Hejira, Song for Sharon, the list goes on of tunes that don't have bridges. They're just kind of verse after verse after verse with an interesting tale that's unfolding.
Right.
So she retained the kind of Travis picking fingerstyle stuff from folk music, and she retained the AAA, it's called the AAA song form, well through her career.
And a lot of people don't compare her to Dylan, but in that case, he was like that too. He did really long folk songs like that.
Yeah.
Well, in a way, having a bridge or a chorus is is a capitulation to sales.
Mm.
I was talking to
Oh yeah.
one of my students the other day. We were looking at some standards in the real book, and I said, all of these songs are either in AA form, like White Christmas, or they're AABA form, which by the time Paul McCartney wrote Yesterday was already an old-fashioned form. But in the rock and roll era, it became common to have verse instead of just a refrain where you just get the answer, my friend is blowing in the wind, the answer is blowing in the wind, which was that got turned into a complete repeating section, which we now call the chorus. And so and sales went up astronomically as soon as songwriters introduced the chorus as a main hook, especially if you started with it like she loves you, yeah, yeah, yeah. It just leaps out of the speakers and you've got the main point of the song in 5 seconds.
Right.
So that was a very big step forward in sales, to write a song with a strong chorus. And I think Joni sort of shied away from that because she may have thought that was cheap.
Song for Sharon was never going to be a single,
But it was released, wasn't it? I mean, this one's the song that got the radio play.
No, Coyote and Blue Motel Room was the single, the A side and the B side. I mean, it might have got some, back in the days, that was album oriented radio. It might have got some play on an AOR station, but it wasn't single fodder for sure.
Did they pull it Coming Out of the Cold and do a single edit of Song for Sharon?
Coming from the Cold was released as a single. They did edit it.
Right.
We'll get there.
David, and then Chris.
A couple of things I want to. There's a really fabulous video on YouTube. Somebody named Berlam, Berlam, did a sort of like a frame by frame ink drawing of Song for Sharon. It's gorgeous. It's
brilliant. It is brilliant.
Yeah, it really is.
It's really wonderful. So I want to point that out. Also, that in this song, there's like that meditative, again and again she does this really deep meditation that, again, ends up, I mentioned this last week, ends up with a sort of, I don't know, it's white flags and winter chimneys, I surrender, I don't know. And the line, the power of reason and the flowers of deep feeling seem to serve me only to deceive me. It's just gorgeous.
That's one of my favorites.
And it's quintessentially
It is
Joni.
the single line that I would probably put it on my tombstone.
Yeah.
I'm serious. It is tremendous.
Like the woman of heart and mind, neither the heart nor the mind is helping her.
Yeah. Or they serve her and deceive her. I mean,
I love vigorous anonymity too.
Yeah, that's a great.
It's one of those 2-word compressions like bourbon laughter that you just go.
Yeah. Restless multiplicity.
Yeah.
Carrion and mercy.
Bob.
So the line, Sharon, I left my man at North Dakota Junction, references when her 76 tour fell apart and she and John Guerin split.
Did it actually happen? It really happened in North Dakota?
Yeah.
Wow.
Did he go on to play on the album after that? Or
He did, yeah. He played on this record, which is pretty crazy.
And the next one.
So did they start back to California together? Because the end of the tour was in Wisconsin.
Yeah. I'm not sure what happened after that, but all I read was that in North Dakota was where, she went her way, he went his way.
Well, as we'll hear in a few more songs, she's coming back to him and his boom boom packager.
Yeah. And I think, as you were alluding to, Mark, part and parcel of the song is, she at this point, she already been married once. Her and Graham Nash flirted with getting married.
Right.
There was Jackson Brown, there was James Taylor, some other guys. And at this point, she's dating John Guerin. That didn't work out. And so she's reflecting, I think, with her friend Sharon Bell, who was very, had a very successful marriage and was probably at that time married and starting a family. And she's like, well, it looks like this is never going to happen for me. It's happening for you, but not for me.
But when she was a kid, she was fascinated by it. And at that one point, she does say the ceremony of the bells and lace still veils this reckless fool here.
Sure, yeah. I think she wanted it.
Yeah.
It reminds me of Harold and Maude, where they meet because they're both obsessed with going to funerals.
Oh.
What do you make of that word veils? Obviously, it's alluding to weddings, but when you veil something, you hide it.
Well, I think it obscures her vision or her focus.
Yeah.
How I always interpreted it.
I mean, it works, but I feel like what she meant is it still draws me in. Still, this ceremony of the bells and lace still draws me in and attracts me, but veils doesn't really mean that.
It reminds me a lot of like this whole idea of like no matter how many times you do something, you always want to do it again because you forget how bad it was.
I dealt with that with an old friend this weekend. You don't even know.
Childbirth.
Or you could think that it is this. I'm making this up right now. That's that it's the ceremony that fantasy of the ceremony veils or obscures the fact that she is in fact a reckless fool. That she's actually acting as a reckless fool, but somehow that ceremony of bells and lace, makes it palatable. Or
Chris,
I'm having two thoughts on this. First, this song has come up in my mind a lot over the past couple of weeks. More because I've been hearing a little bit of, Nancy Griffith's work, and she, or Nancy Griffith in '78, I guess it was, on her first record, came up with a song that was "There's a Light on the Other Side of the Woods," Mary Margaret, and it's kind of, she is talking to a childhood friend, and she's drawing an arc of their life together, even before it occurs. So it's not all in retrospect, much the way Joni has done here, but it just reminded me a lot of that maybe Nancy Griffith kind of got permission to write that kind of that way and bring that kind of experience to a song. The second thing I wanted to say is that this song is as again in places it is as profound and as deep as anything we've just heard in Hejira. It is incredibly profound. I mean, the way when she talks about the suicide of that woman and her friend's reactions to it, and the fact that it seems we all live. The most cynical line I think she ever wrote. It seems we all live so close to that line and so far from satisfaction. I mean, in that kind of reaction from a group of people, trying to find, sometimes, in a clumsy way, stumbling to find something to say about somebody who has just passed away or just killed himself is really, really so. Nobody writes songs like that. God. Hey Sue, remember last week when you were playing and there was that sound? I got a little bit of
I
that
was getting like PTSD there for a second.
That's the Hejira winter storm machine. Where's that coming from? Oh,
Luckily it stopped.
Yeah, it stopped. It's part of the experience.
I just changed my microphone, but that doesn't seem to be the problem. So.
Bob?
So, I've read where the suicide here is a reference to Jackson Brown's girlfriend that killed herself. Regardless of that, I think the line, she was just shaking off futility or punishing somebody is just a brilliant, brilliant line, as Chris alluded to earlier. And, I would say, how many suicides fall into that category?
Yeah.
Either you've had enough or someone's done something to you that hurts you so badly you can't move on. It's like, I'll show you, here we go. This is like this entire album. It's really hard to pick a line or even a couple of lines because the next couple are just as strong.
Yeah.
The next couple are just as strong.
All
This
emotions,
is
abstractions.
yeah. This is a high level poetry at an extremely high level that's never been matched before or since, in my opinion.
And then, like, if you group together Joni Mitchell songs, you have the Graham Nash songs, the James Taylor, Jackson Brown's Girlfriends.
See, in the next stanza, she starts talking about Golden Reggie.
Oh,
That whole line of, you know, Mama's nylons underneath my cowgirl jeans. I mean, that's just so brilliant too. It's like this whole the dream is starting. You know, she's going to see this guy she has a crush on, and you know, she wants to still be the tomboy, but she knows there's something better going on over there. You know, she has her mama's nylons on. It's just so you know, it gives me chills sometimes because I mean, I've had those memories too.
yeah.
I mean, you know, growing up, it's like going in high school and stuff, and you know, falling in love for the first time, and just you have this like fantasy. Well, I did. I had this fantasy world about what my life was going to be based on all these, you know, setups that people, you know, well, you know, you're going to get married, you're going to have kids, you know, all this great stuff, and you know, I went and got married really young to a person in hindsight was like the worst person for me. You know, I was madly in love with him, but he turned out to be like so bad for me. And you know, it's like, you know, where do you get that you know, how does that lesson happen, you know? So you just keep on going and you keep on, you know, I mean, and her lyrics just bring out all the trauma of that, but also, you know, the hope of it too, which, you know, that's why they always used to call her the Lady of Duality. You know, it's like the emotions are both, you know, exquisite and also completely devastating, and in the same line, you know. And it's just for me growing up and even going into later life, they just keep on feeling fresh to me. All
You
these
mentioned
lines.
Golden Reggie.
Yeah, you know.
Is Reggie Regina going to the big city, Regina, or is
I
it
don't know. I think
or
it's
is
the
it
guy.
Reggie from the Archie comics who's rich and you know and
Well, with
you know
Joni, it's always somebody specific, you know. I mean, I think that there was a guy named Reggie there, probably. You know.
Yeah. Well, and she was skating after him, but it was actually white lace that she was chasing.
Yeah.
So like Sue said, she had her nylons on underneath her cowgirl jeans. She was had a crush on this guy, and then first you get the kisses and then you get the tears. So it didn't pan out.
And
talking about tears, every time I watch a candle burn and watch the wax roll down, all I can think about is that lyric. The wax rolls down like tears. This just always comes to mind.
I've always thought,
I think I'll roll right past this train.
until now, I always just thought that the nylons under the cowgirl jeans were just her keeping her legs warm.
Oh no.
It was Canada, the Canadian North, cold, ice skating.
It's the lace on the seams again. It's just she's got the
But
sophistication.
yeah, I see that now.
Underneath there.
You go into your mother's room and you pull out the lipstick and
I did.
Was there?
I never did that. That I can recall.
Her use of the word golden appears over and over again in Sweet Bird and Otis and Marlena and here, and it always refers to young and beautiful and attractive, and it's one of her shorthand words, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
The golden dive in Otis, and so yeah, I think already she had picked that word. I think she used it on For the Roses too. She had
Golden egg.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, in that context, it wasn't referring to people, but yeah, she has these trigger words that are loaded to mean the whole package of young and beautiful and tanned and fit.
Well, and of course, the classic issue should be Woodstock, right? We're stardust, we're golden.
Yeah, the stardust in that song is absolutely scientifically literal. we are actually particles from the Big Bang. And then she must have read that somewhere and, condensed that entire concept. And golden, I suppose in that context, she meant, blessed and full of promise, perhaps. But then abandoned that belief shortly afterwards, by the next verse.
There.
Your audio is very faint, Dave.
Oh, okay. I should just get closer on the mic then.
Oh, there we go. So it's interesting with this rumination on marriage. Somewhere behind a pinball machine, Larry Klein was waiting to be discovered just a few years later.
Don't remind me.
It's
I was surprised as hell by that.
from Maidstone to Saskatoon.
Sometimes when I'm bored at night, I Google Street View different towns. So I think I might do a Google Street View through Maidstone later on tonight to see what it looks like.
And Maidstone does have a Joni Mitchell museum.
Good.
Yeah, they do. Ashara went there and took some pictures. It's really, really small and very humble, but she said it was really cool. They had some really cool stuff.
Wow.
I thought somebody on the list had been there.
Yeah.
I mean, that's way out there, isn't it?
Anywhere.
Long drive from anywhere.
It's 2 hours from Saskatoon, so,
Have you all ever done a Joni Fest in Saskatoon/Maidstone? Let's go.
British
Nope.
Columbia was the Canadian. It was the only Canadian one, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, there was, we all kind of met up around, for the Mendel thing, but that was in Saskatoon.
And then the concert that she for her 70th birthday was in Toronto, so that was amazing too. Yeah.
Wow.
I've been to the Broadway Bridge.
Aw.
in the Mendel, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
So we didn't talk about the mandolin and the little Indian kids. That was in the first verse. Right?
Yeah, I think that mandolin store just closed down not too long ago. Chris, I'm sure you know because that's a New York thing.
Years ago, I think it was. Yeah.
Something Brothers, the store.
Mandolin Brothers. They were luthiers in Staten Island, and they sold a lot of guitars they made as well as some antique instruments. They had some unique things, and Joni's been pictured in there. And she kind of, she didn't put them on the map. She, obviously heard about them, along, the years, and was impressed with their instruments. I don't know, does anybody know what she actually bought from them? Amanda Cello. I know I've seen a picture of her playing one. Did she actually buy it?
That's a pretty rare instrument. I think it was a 1915 Mandocello. It's not something you'd find every day.
I really love that line. There's a gypsy down on Bleecker Street. Went in to see her as a kind of.
Yeah.
Still, they're still there.
Lit a candle for my love book and $18
Sit up and smoke.
It's a hell of a lot more than $18 now.
And the next verse starts, Sharon, I left my man at a North Dakota junction. No love luck.
No love luck there.
The last time she was on Bleecker Street, she found someone to love today, and then when she returns a few years later, the gypsy. So
No luck.
Yeah, no luck. Our second time on Bleecker Street with Joni. And I've actually been on Bleecker Street because there used to be a club called Mr. Black's right on the corner. So I took a picture with the sign, like, oh, I'm on Bleecker Street.
Me and my friends went down to Bleecker Street to go to Folk City, Gertie's Folk City, and because my boyfriend at the time was a huge Dylan fan, and they played music, and they played at the open mic at Folk City. It was really cool. And
that was my father's neighborhood. He was born on Thompson Street in the apartment there. It was he grew up in 1915, hung out in Washington Square Park. I mean, a hotbed of all of these artists. And
yeah, it was great.
he had no clue.
Yeah.
It was
wow.
And the opening act when we were there one night was Bruce Cockburn. This is like really like the beginning of his career, and you know, I didn't really understand at the time, but a couple of years later, I realized, oh wow, this guy's great. You know, and I kind of bumped into him like coming out of the bathroom. I was like, oh.
I think he's playing in Seattle here pretty soon.
Really?
I thought about you, Sue, because I know how
Yes,
much you
that's
like
right,
him.
for years. Yeah, he's also an alternate tuning, you know, crazy person.
Donna
So
Hagen
they-
talks about him and says, Bruce Cockburn showed me this tuning, so I wrote a song in
Who said that?
Jonathan Brooke.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, she was on one of his albums.
Yeah, and she does some really interesting tunings, and she's a really excellent guitar player.
Does somebody have a cat who's getting sick?
Jeremy?
Oh my, it's not
That's
mine this
my
time.
dog's tail hitting my seat. Excuse me. I'm not sure.
I thought somebody was. I thought it was. I thought it was a hairball. Sorry.
Hasn't my cat taken enough this week?
Hey, are they letting Canadians into the U.S. yet? I know we could go there, but can they come here? Being in the U.S.
It's always been easier coming in, actually, but I'm not sure.
Something I do want to mention is how wild her background vocals are on this song. She sounds like a banshee. I'd love to have an isolated track of just those background vocals.
Oh, there's a set of folks in the JMDL who have it down to. They've got it
When we performed Hejira, we brought in this three-girl harmony group. We call them the Sharonettes, and they did that. If you go on YouTube and look "Song for Sharon" by Robin, you'll hear them.
Oh,
It was really fun to have the real thing and not just leave it out.
Can you send him just the isolated
Uh,
backup vocal?
possibly.
well, Robin, if you're singing, I can't leave you out. I got to hear that.
Well, they were really impressive. Those women.
That was a great night.
I
And
think
bless Bob from. I think you came the furthest of anybody.
Probably from Greenville, South Carolina to
Yeah.
San Diego.
That's
wow.
so wonderful of you.
The one
I
that
would-
you
I wouldn't
came
have
to,
missed
we,
it.
we didn't film, but we did it a few months later and did film it. So the YouTube is of the second one.
Okay. And what year was that? When did that happen?
2014.
Okay. Jack, was your hand up? Oh, sorry, Dave.
Yeah. I was just going to talk. To me, this song was really all about the marriage thing. I was 22 at the time. This is another one that really kind of hit me like a diary song. I was 22 at the time. I had been dating the same woman for several years, but it had been like a long-term relationship for a while now. And, it was getting to the point where it was pretty obvious that it wasn't going to work out for us. And, so I saw that white lace slipping away kind of thing. My brothers all had gotten married when they were like 20 or 21. So I was starting to feel like the old spinster or old man kind of thing, because I wasn't married yet. So I definitely kind of related to the idea of chasing the white lace, even though I wouldn't have been wearing it. So yeah, this song really hit home with me of where I was emotionally and relationship wise and what have you when it came out.
Now, do y'all think she like worked on it a little bit, walked away and came back to it, or do you think it all flowed out just in one session with her? I mean, we'll never know unless someone does know, but
From the way that these pieces of paper come to light of some of her scratchings when she's writing songs, she goes over these songs over and over and over again. She fine tunes them to a point there. It all has to balance the way it's coming out of her head, and also going with the music too. You
Right.
know? And somebody had found her scratchings in a hotel of Ludwig's tune.
oh,
And
Yeah.
the lyrics sounded totally different. They were not the lyrics that finally came out on the album. It was really fascinating. So, I mean, stuff like that really shows, her process.
It's interesting because as much as I love Jocko on the album, I'd like Song for Sharon without Jocko. Like, I just don't think he would have worked on this song. I think the more traditional bass.
Yeah,
I
that
don't
was
know.
Max Bennett.
Max Bennett, yeah.
She still had him on board for a track or two on this.
Was Max with you on this song too, Dave?
No, we only did one concert with Max in 2011, and it was a doozy though. We did Blue and Court and Spark in one night, and it was a blast playing Help Me with Max behind you.
God.
The real guy, and playing and he'd gone through the whole album and transcribed note for note what he originally played. So he was reading dots on our gig. He was reconstructing his exact parts, and he asked to play with us. Incidentally, we didn't seek him out. I interviewed him for the Joni website, and then we got talking about, he said, well, what do you do? And I said, well, actually, I have a band with my wife that we do Joni music. And he said, well, you need a bass player,
Awesome.
Love to play with you.
That's
Well, that was
awesome.
after you sent.
Well,
him
I
our
sent him a copy of our album, and he loved that. And so Robbins came up with the idea, well, why don't we put a show together, move our bass player over to second keyboard and have Max do bass just for one night. And it was jam-packed. The audience was, teeming full, because the press had gotten a hold of, the fact that Max, who'd been on all these records, was coming to town. So we had a really good turnout and filmed it and everything. So that was the night that we played with him. But we kept in touch, and I invited him to the Hejira show. I think he was working, but
We had a very good friend of ours, real fabulous bass player. Dave transcribed Jocko's parts out, and he just shed them, and he was really the right bass player. It might have been a little funny to have Max play.
yeah. Would you mind playing the parts of your replacement?
All right, Chris.
One comment with regard to Max, and then I've got one other comment. They're both kind of New York centric. Max is so right for this song because he keeps it moving. This is, I say this all the time to people, this is the click that you walk a sidewalk in New York to. You don't dare walk any slower because you're going to have somebody climbing up their back going, making that face. So that is the click. You want to walk at a speed in New York? That's the click. And Max, just kept it moving. That's just right. The other thing was, I think I alluded last week that when I was getting accustomed to this album, I was going through a pretty rough adjustment up at school. But apart from that, my parents had had a pretty severe automobile accident. My mother was injured, and I was being taken back a couple of weeks later for the Thanksgiving holiday after the album came out. And right as we were entering the Whitestone Bridge, which goes to Queens, where I grew up, and has to the west side an unobstructed view of the full length of Manhattan Island, this song was playing on the radio. And first of all, I said, I can't believe they're going to go through all 8 minutes of this song. They did. And how welcoming home was that to see this amazing song with that view, high up on a bridge, looking at the full length of Manhattan Island with the skyline that looked like the previous record. It was one of those moments that I just have to share. Sorry, but it was great.
No, I absolutely love stuff like that. And this is, in my opinion, the best traveling album of all time. This doesn't even come close to second, but the only thing even close to this for me would be Tori Amos's Scarlet's Walk album. But, it doesn't even touch this one.
Yeah, I think the Jack, correct me if I'm wrong, but every time you get a new car, the first thing you do is ride in it with playing Hejira in the background.
Yep.
That is so
Anytime I
cool.
go on a trip, I actually got an interesting story and a couple songs I can tell you about.
Oh, I love it. Now, when we're talking about Max Bennett doing the Jaco Pastorius bass parts, I can't even picture it. But when I think about when Larry Klein tried to do the Jaco parts on the Wild Things Run Fast tour, that was not my favorite. It just seemed
Jocko
kind of
was not really somebody you imitate. Well, you fail if you try to imitate him.
right.
Everybody got themselves a fretless bass from 1976 onward, but that, buying the gear is the easy part. He was just such an inventive and funky player. I mean, it wasn't just his melodic thing and his tone, but he was just had this great pocket. So instead of just playing roots and downbeats, he was always dancing around the time, like a drummer's ride cymbal on playing jazz. There's a real kind of dancing aspect to how he played, and you can't really mimic that.
Larry's credit though as a bassist, he does play the bowed bass as well, so he does have a feeling for sustain and
Sure.
melody delivered by bass. So I mean, he's no Jaco for sure, but he's a talented musician. And
Yeah, no disrespect to Klein because he's done some stuff I love. Oh,
No,
sorry to interrupt.
Larry was an excellent bass player. But yeah, he was on the fretless bandwagon like every other bass player in after Jaco. You just had to have a fretless in your arsenal. But Herbie talks about people trying to imitate Jaco, and Pat Metheny's talked about it and said, he's not just the sum of the parts.
I feel like the fretless bass can just be really kind of a little too smooth jazzy sometimes. But Jaco just a tad.
It's actually not used in smooth jazz very often.
Okay.
It's really hard to play in tune, just like a cello or a upright bass, and it takes years and years to learn how to play it in tune. So it's not just you don't just switch over. I mean, a fretted bass you play behind the frets, and a fretless you play exactly on where the fret would be.
Okay.
So your whole hand position has to be different.
The bassist from Return to Forever have fretless too. I can't remember his name. Yes.
Stanley Clark. He may have owned one, but I never heard him play one.
Oh, okay.
But Mark Egan, that in the first Pat Metheny group, he was definitely mimicking Jaco, and maybe Pat asked him to, because he and Pat and Jaco were old friends. I wanted to just talk about the guitar sound on Song for Sharon, but also on Hejira in general. This was the only album up to this point where she had played electric guitar.
Mm-hmm.
And she didn't really play it again, except for the until she got into the Roland
Right.
VG guitar. And so this was kind of a unique sound for her. And the Ibanez George Benson that we always picture her playing on the tour hadn't been released yet. That came out in 77 or 78. So I asked Pam Runkle if she could ask Joni what guitar she used on Hejira, and Joni amazingly didn't remember.
Wow.
I think if it was the one time you used electric guitar, you'd at least be able to describe what it looked like. But judging by the sound of it, I would say it was a large body arch top, maybe a Gretsch or possibly a Gibson or a Guild F-hole guitar. And I brought one to use tonight. And I'm pretty sure she used flat wound strings, which gives it this real tubby sound. But she was using a lot of effects, and it's not really chorus. It's the MXR Phase 90 pedal, which gives you this kind of Dave Gilmour, Pink Floyd-y kind of swirling sound. You can totally hear it on Hejira, and you can hear it on Coyote, and there's this kind of slow modulation going on. But on Song for Sharon, she has the phase speed turned up really high, so it's going. It's got this wobble to it,
Mm-hmm.
which is really an interesting sound. And I work quite a bit to recreate that sound when we performed this album and performed this tune, and I was kind of proud of nailing that tone. But it was a combination of an archtop guitar with probably flat wound strings and then this phaser. So according to Steve Katz, she would go to Guitar Center and try out pedals and take them home and see what she wanted to use, and then walk into the studio at A&M with a plan. I'm going to use this on this song, plug it in, and there's no experimenting going on the label's dime.
Okay.
So that was pretty proactive to kind of design her sounds at home and then bring them in.
Good for her. We talked about the jazz chorus stamp last week, but this was before that was even made. They only made that so that she could somehow hint to replicate this sound from this album on tour. So everything that she did in the studio to make this sound was done kind of as you're describing, kind of the old-fashioned, piece by piece, artisanal way, with Steve and Henry and herself.
The first Roland chorus effect was this rack mount, big heavy thing, and it did come into. It was released in late '75, so it's quite possible that A&M had one. So I'm not discounting that there is no use of chorus on Hejira, because there could have been. But because of all the double and triple tracking, you naturally get chorusing.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so I think there's definitely quite a lot of phaser going on, which is why you get this liquid undulating sound that chorus doesn't have that, but phasers do. It's if you can picture like Dark Side of the Moon, it's got that sound all over it. So it was a well-established pedal by then. And so that's what I'm hearing that she used on this record.
All right. Well, do we have any other thoughts on Song for Sharon before Bob tells us who covered it?
Not a lot of covers of Song for Sharon. 10. It's a long song, so it's a daunting song to cover. The first one was from our friend David Lahm in 1999. It was a jazz cover. He's a jazz pianist in New York City, so he broke ground on it.
Wow.
There's been a couple of jazz covers, been a couple of vocal covers. Every once in a while it pops up, and I'm always happy to see when it does.
Now, Bob, are there any Joni songs that haven't been covered to date?
Oh yeah, a lot. We'll get into those. Most of the 80s songs have been left fallow.
How many covers of Dancing Clown are there?
Except for the one that me and Dave did in California. Yeah.
And Dave was able to retrieve. He had his.
Oh yeah, I had a hard drive with all of our band's archives on all of the live concerts, all of the studio things that we'd ever done, and I never plugged it in because I thought, well, it's perfectly safe as long as I never use it. So, and then one day, about 5 years ago, I went to try to retrieve something of it, and it was completely gone, completely corrupted, unreadable.
Oh no!
And did that have the Idlewild stuff on it too?
It had
recording.
Yeah, it had that whole Joni Fest in Idlewild with all of that, and so I looked into data recovery places, and they, everybody said, oh, it's thousands of dollars to recover data off a hard drive, but then my friend told me about a place in LA that do it for $300, so I thought I'll try it, and sure enough, they were able to retrieve almost 80% of the data.
Wow.
So I had to buy a donor drive so that the read heads could be taken out of it and put into this drive. Anyway, ended up for about $600 and something. I was able to recover a lot of our stuff. So I'm going through that drive, what is readable, and not all of it is, and making a permanent archive of this stuff, and it's really fun to revisit.
And maybe we can release Bob's version of
No, maybe not.
Oh, no, it was great.
Wait a minute.
What's it worth to you?
Watch out, everybody, because I'm about to start performing with my rockin' version of "Smokin', Try Another" and the reoccurring dream. I'm just
I
kidding.
have thought about doing "Empty Try Another" actually.
Listen, I love that song. There's sometimes I just listen to it like over and over. All right, well, back to Hejira. I guess we will move on to the next track. Now, I don't know if I mentioned this on the last podcast, but a lot of these songs I heard the Shadows and Light version first. So for Black Crow, you know, the Shadows and Light version kind of has this like keyboard thing. So I thought it was all right. But then when I heard the Hejira version, I was surprised how heavy this song is. It's really
a rocker.
I mean, I know she kind of rocked on Raised on Robbery, but I feel like this is a new level of rock for Joni here. And
No drums.
Yeah, well, and how weird to have no drums on your most rockin' track yet.
yeah, I love Black Crow. I love this song.
So Raised on Robbery is a pretty tame, kind of old-fashioned, 50s kind of rock feel, but this was much more Deep Purple.
Yeah. I was surprised when I was playing the album and it came in and it just became an immediate. I just fell in love with this song. And I'm trying to think, did Joni ever rock that hard again? Let's not talk about Lead Balloon.
It's fun to do, though, isn't it, Sue?
Yeah, I mean, I've been practicing it for about a week now, and I pulled out my electric guitar.
Oh, so before we talk about the song, you're performing this, correct, Sue?
Yeah, right.
Well, let's do this thing.
Not worthy, though. I mean, I was listening to her strum, and it's just so incredible. I can never find this list, but a couple of years ago there was a list, greatest guitar performances, like 100 people or something, and Black Crow was on that list, and I was shocked. That she even made but it's true. It's just an incredible. I mean, I just find it so syncopated and
Less urban.
it sounds amazing.
Yeah, really.
Oh,
It's a crazy tune. Les,
look who joined.
God,
The Kingpin himself.
How awesome. This is great.
You're just in time.
Last year, it's time for Black Crow.
Hey, everybody mute though, so that Sue doesn't get any.
Les, where are you? Are you in Colorado or New Mexico?
Unmute.
Unmute.
Sorry, I'm not very computer literate. Yeah, I'm in Colorado. Thought I'd join in and listen for a bit.
Thanks for
Well,
joining
you did.
us.
can't put my pick. That's not good. Talk for a minute while I look for my pick.
Yep.
Okay, I'm not worthy to do this song. Be kind. It's just amazing. And it's a B flat tuning. That's crazy. So, here we go. I've been traveling so long.
morning. I looked at my happy face in the moonlight. I looked out the window. I saw them rise, take flight. I saw Black Crow flying in a blue sky.
Thank you, Sue.
Hey.
Great job, Sue.
Good job.
Thank you.
You got the guitar sound.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's why I had to use my. I call her Marlena. She's the blue Marlena.
Hold her up. I want to see her blue body.
I bought it off a grad student for like $300.
Ooh, she's pretty.
Nice.
I mean, I don't know about all the like knobs and stuff, you know. I don't know any of that stuff, but I just gotta play around with it, you know. I actually bought a VG8 once, and I still haven't taken it out of the box.
That's how they sound the best.
So, Dave, that guitar is kind of like what you were describing, right? A hollow body arch top like that? Or, no?
This is more like
Yeah.
what
Okay.
Joni played
Yeah,
on
mine
this
is kind of a
album.
knockoff.
So a thicker body and truly hollow, not just chambers.
Right.
I'm only going on the sound of it, but I kind of know what guitar would make that sound, and it's something like this. But I think she, you know, on the Rolling Thunder review, there's a photo of her sitting in with Neil Young, and she borrowed one of Neil's big body Gretsch guitars, and I heard somewhere that he gave it to her, and that was the year before this album or months before this album. So I think it's highly possible that she played a Gretsch, which was sort of like a George Harrison kind of, you know, large arch top like that. But it's funny that she doesn't remember, because she only ever played electric guitar a few times. And the Ibanez, once that came out, and she had 4 of them for she, obviously we all know about that, but the only other guitar she played before that, you would think she'd remember.
Right.
Do
Well, I
you
know it's from.
Les?
Oh.
Oh. Les is muted. Or maybe he wants to be muted. Do you
Talking
know
smack.
about the guitar that she played?
I'm having a hard time hearing you guys. Does anybody else have a hard time hearing?
Maybe
Yeah,
we'll
I
take
agree.
this- Is that better?
Yeah, that's better.
Oh, okay. We'll pass a mic. Do you have any idea what guitar she played?
On the album?
Yeah, on the album.
Oh, no. I thought Dave Blackburn would know all that stuff.
Well, I asked Steve Katz, and he said it was some large arch top, and so then I asked Pam Runkle to ask Joni directly, and she did, and Joni didn't remember.
Joni didn't remember?
Mm-mm.
Oh.
There
Well,
you have it.
there you have it. Yeah, even Joni doesn't know.
So we take her history much more seriously than she does.
Thank God.
Now, I know it's redundant to say this, but I can't, stop thinking that it's 5 years that separates Carrie from Black Crow. Like 5 freaking years. 2016 to 2021. I think it's 2 different universes to me.
I really feel like the thing about Black Crow, playing it just with the guitar, what you're missing out on is all the incredible other guitar stuff that's going on there with Larry. Is that Larry Carlton, right, Dave? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was Larry.
It's
Yeah.
just, I mean, the harmonics and everything that I think they're I don't know what he's doing really.
The textures. It's definitely like textures.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
most of what she had Larry do were kind of ethereal things, but on this it was pretty biting, and
Yeah, like that thing that he does at the end, like that.
Oh yeah, with the yeah, that's
Yeah,
good.
that's incredible.
Yeah. So just a true studio musician that could give you whatever you needed.
He's definitely one of the stars of this album for sure.
Dave, do you
Well,
think
if you
they
hear,
used the echo?
compare what's that?
Do you
I
think
have
they
echo?
used the echo? Do you think they used the echo chambers below, underneath A&M? I know they had some tunnels or something downstairs that they would open. And
Well, they would have
and
used
even
those
remember that
for reverb, but at the actual echo on Larry's guitar was done with a pedal.
And I remember they were talking that Steve in his article, that in his interview article, had even talked about one client who came into A&M and actually through an ISDN line. I think it was Herb Albert.
It was Herb Albert who owned the studio.
He came in and actually through a high-speed telephone line rented Capitol's tunnels.
Right, that blew me away that even in that era you could do that. So if you didn't read that interview, back at that time, you could rent the Capitol Studios underground reverb chambers, by the hour, and you could access them via an ISDN phone line. So A&M could send a signal in real time down the phone line, have it appear on a speaker in one of those chambers, be picked up by a mic and sent back in real time in mono or stereo, and come up on the board at A&M. I mean, that's just astonishing. So it was expensive,
but not used here.
Yeah.
Well, no, I think it's an Echoplex on Larry's guitar here, but an A&M had above ground echo chambers, so they were, according to Steve, they were always damp. So there was so much condensation in these things that the gear was always breaking down from all the moisture in there.
Okay.
So sometimes
They would run dehumidifiers overnight to dry them out.
But James Taylor at his home, he's got one of those shipping containers set up as a reverb tank, and so from his little studio he sends signal to this shipping container that's all clangy inside, and that's the reverb they use instead of using a digital simulation.
Isn't there a famous story about a stairwell or something that they used for Simon and Garfunkel? Roy Haley did something where, like, he put them, about a quarter mile away, like down a staircase somewhere, and had them,
It
scream
sounds
as loud
like
as
it.
they could.
That was the trick to Led Zeppelin drum sound in the first couple of albums is putting a mic in a stairwell 20 feet away from the kit, and that was the John Bonham drum sound. It was just one mic on the first couple of albums.
Wow.
And so the sound that drummers have been trying to emulate ever since was done with one mic in a stairwell.
The a cappella groups at Cornell used to hang out in the stairwell. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Bob.
So getting back to Black Crow, which I think is where we are. This, as far as I know, correct me if I'm wrong, on the album she sings "In Search of Love and Music My Whole Life Has Been," but every time I've heard her do the song live on bootlegs, it's always been "In Search of Truth and Beauty."
Oh.
She changed that lyric almost immediately to "Truth and Beauty" from Love and Music.
Oh.
And every once in a while, somebody will do a cover of the song and they'll sing "Truth and Beauty." It's like,
Really?
okay, there's a true fan right there.
She does that on occasion. She'll change a line in a song, and then you hear it in every live performance afterwards.
Yeah.
We'll have to do that, Sue.
Huh? Yeah,
We'll
it'll be
have
Truth
to
and
do to
Beauty
show
from
our
now on.
credentials of fandom.
I didn't know that.
But watching Sue do it right now, I was just thinking how well the guitar and the music matches the lyric and the frenetic quality. I mean, you can just see the black crow darting around through the sky. And Sue, you were just rocking out.
Oh, thanks.
It was great. I loved it.
Yeah, that's really fun to play.
It's a different side of Sue, that's for sure.
Let's
I
talk
used to
about.
be in a rock band.
Well, and of course, we've all heard Brian Thomas sing the song You know,
Oh, he
he's
does a great
a
job.
very
Yeah.
talented black musician, and he'll sing "He's as black as the highway, he's as black as me."
Oh.
And then Kay Ashley also does an incredible version of this song. Been a long time since we've seen Kay.
Now, Joni picks up on the Crows a lot. You know, Crazy Crow. You know, her publishing company.
Right.
You know, she brings up crows a lot, and this time she even hit them graphically. You know, with the costumes. It's pretty exciting to see this imagery. And you know, this is the first time where you kind of like she never really made sense why she was kind of like obsessed with crows until this song, and then suddenly I said, okay. Now I see what she sees in them, and you know what they bring to her, and what how she would personify them. But it was a mystery for a while. I have to say I was a little weirded out by the costumes, but that's I got used to it.
Now, did anyone notice that guitar solo that comes in during the fade out? I always wish that would have just kept going a little bit longer, because it starts going in a place that only lasts for a couple seconds, and I want to know where that would have gone.
Yeah, and when Dave and Robin did their performance in San Diego, they had this great guitarist Jamie Kime, who had just a killer solo in the song. My jaw was not literally on the ground, but I was just amazed and aghast at the quality of Jamie's playing on this song, which I totally love anyway.
We put drums on it like it always should have had.
You make it your own. That's what you do.
Well, it just seems weird doing a almost like a metal riff with no drums.
And one of my favorite photos from the album is actually the sleeve. And who was it said they had a signed copy? No, it was Ruben, I think. Where she's got her arms spread and the cloche feathered hat, and she has this look on her face like, oh, it's almost beatific. It's like she's looking down and going, this wondrous look. It's beautiful.
Oh,
Yeah,
No, that's not the one I'm talking
the one
about.
he's talking about is like a full
Yeah.
stretch.
Did
Mhm. It was the entire sleeve.
I might have it in what's that guy's name who just put out the book?
Seif? Norman Seif?
Norman Seif.
Let me see if it's in there.
Oh. I don't have mine.
A copy of that image actually just sold in some auction that I was found.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, that's gorgeous. Yeah.
I don't have my vinyl Hejira here. Just it's not there.
Though I think in
Look up.
the one I saw, the background
Yeah,
That's it.
dark like that though.
here, let's spotlight this. It's hard pressed for me to think of any album where the cover just really represents the music like this one.
Yeah, there's a whole series of photos in this book of that session. It's pretty amazing. This is weird.
And then, of course, a sort of an obscure reference
Ooh.
would be in 1964 on the very first Archives session. She did a song at the half beat called "Crow on the Cradle."
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, which she was pregnant at the time. So
Breaks my
listen to
heart.
the lyrics.
What that must have taken from out of her to perform that song.
Pretty
Breaks
remarkable.
My heart.
To understand that she's pregnant while doing this song,
Breaks my heart.
and it might have been why the crow was such an important symbol for her. Just no, I don't have nothing. This is my own opinion.
Sue, I just realized I didn't spotlight the video when you performed. I apologize.
Oh, that's okay.
I'm fired.
So that picture with the moody sky behind her, that really kind of captures iconography from different parts of the lyrics, just as I forget if when we were discussing hissing, whether Robin mentioned about the medallions that Joni had made for her band. Did she mention that? So she had these medallions designed, or she designed the medallions and they had them made as gifts for her band members, and they had a serpent, and they had a plane flying, and all these various elements from songs from that album, and so Max was of course given one, and his wife, it was in his wife's possession, and when we did that concert with Max, Terry let Robin wear it, so
wow,
she's actually wearing the medallion that Joni had made for her band members with all the iconography of the hissing record. And that photo that you just held up, Chris, is seems to capture both the crow imagery and the moody sky imagery of Hejira. Got to get used to that.
And looking down on everything.
Yep, there you go.
Well, and how many times have we woken up, especially in our older ages, woken up in the morning and looked at our faces in the bathroom mirror, our haggard faces in the bathroom light? Like, oh, that comes back to haunt me almost every morning.
Yeah, I looked at
more haggard in my 20s. I saw more haggard in my 20s than I have lately.
Hey,
There
Dave,
were
you
some
look
times
like-
when I'm sorry. There were some times when I was up all night when I was younger, and I would understand exactly what that lyric was about.
now. Do you all feel like this was a song that was written later on in this journey of hers? Because it comes later on in the album. It definitely feels like there's a lot of experience in there before we get to this song.
I mean, the publishing date is September the 2nd, 1976.
Okay.
So
That's right before the release.
yeah, she walked in. She
Out
walked
in
into the
November,
sections saying, "I just wrote this song."
So are there different publication dates for the different songs?
I'm sure so. Yeah.
Right. Interesting.
The song is about how to access her property in BC, and it really is. We've actually, some of us have done this trip where you really do have to take a ferry or a pontoon plane, which Steve Dolson did, to get to that coast, and then if you're not taking a car, you've got to take taxis and stuff. So it's another one of those extremely literal stories that Joni tells, but she manages to make it into kind of a magical tale, but it's a pretty literal tale in this case of how remote her place is.
Wow. Jack.
All right. So, and I think the old time JMDLers probably know this story because I've written about it, but Black Crow was my mystical Joni moment, I guess. I've talked how I always play this whenever I go on a trip, and some of the stuff that I was going through at the time. Anyway, I was living in Tucson, Arizona. I lost my job. I was moving back to Chicago. Wasn't particularly excited about that. And the girl I had left behind was in Chicago. Will she still love me? Blah, blah, blah. All of that was going through my mind. Anyway, I'm driving a CJ 5 Jeep with all my worldly belongings in it, in a trailer that I'm towing. And I'm getting ready to leave to go back to Chicago. I put on Hejira, and I couldn't get my Jeep out of 4-wheel drive. This is, a long, long time ago, and there was like a stick shift almost type of thing that you had to do to take it out of 4-wheel drive. And I couldn't get, and there was no way I was going to drive to Chicago with it in 4-wheel. And back then you were supposed to move slowly while you're trying to get it out of 4-wheel drive. So I'm basically driving around Tucson at like 5 miles an hour, trying to get freaking thing out of 4-wheel drive with Hejira playing. And finally, and this will give you an idea how long it took. I was finally able to get it out of four-wheel drive, and I'm approaching the outskirts of Tucson as Black Crow comes on the stereo. And with that, I swear to God, this really happened. A huge black crow flew over my head and was flying directly down the center of the highway, leading me out of Tucson. And as the song ended, the crow kind of took off and flew to the right, and he was gone. But it gave me a feeling that maybe this going back to Chicago wasn't a bad thing. For whatever weird reason, it kind of filled me with hope, and it all worked out well. I found a great job. I met my future wife, and the rest is history. But
It all started with the crow.
It all started with the crow. And honestly, I was so freaked out. I almost had to like pull off the road.
Wow.
It was happening. So anyway,
you
that's
were
my
you were its shiny thing.
Yeah. and what's weird is like the black crow is kind of like my spirit animal. I'm attracted to pretty things. I'm a collector. I'm easily distracted from what I'm supposed to be doing. When I do my own artwork on some of the personal stuff, I'll include like a little crow in it to kind of represent myself. So anyway, this is a super important song to me.
I know Joni did this on Shadows and Light. Did she ever perform it live after that tour?
She did it in '98.
Somebody just sent on the list links to Black Crow and to Don Juan's Reckless Daughter, and I don't know what concerts they're from, but they are rocking clips.
She played it at Back to the Garden too.
Really?
Yeah, she did a really great version there.
Yeah, Hejira, was a touchstone for her for every tour and performances that she did. The few she did the '80s, couple of one-off shows where she did 2 or 3 songs. She'd always go back to this album again and again and again.
Right. And it was on the acoustic at the Back to the Garden?
No, she was playing
She's
electric.
playing the Parker.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, right.
It's quite great.
All right, we have to look that up.
Question about crows. I didn't think they were collectors, but they are. I know magpies have that reputation of picking up shiny things, but crows do that too.
I believe so. That's my understanding. And, that's certainly how I interpret it. Always diving down to pick up something shiny.
I'll have to ask Siri about that.
Joni Mitchell never lied.
I was just going to say that.
Well, and Black Magpie would not have had the same feel.
Right.
And then they're jackdaws too. They're same family, I think.
No.
Now this song is such a Jocko song. He's put such balls into when he plays, and I just love it.
Yeah, he had to tune the bass down a half step to be able to catch those harmonics.
All right. Does anyone else have any thoughts on Black Crow before we go over to Bob?
Believe it or not, Siri just gave me an answer to this.
Oh, okay.
Here. All right, hold on. Let me find it. It's within this article somewhere. Okay. All right. For instance, one study presented both captive and free-living magpies, piles of blue or shiny silver screws, rings, and pieces of tinfoil near piles of food to which they had previously habituated. They found that rather than thieving and subsequently caching the gleaming objects, the birds were actually more nervous to take food than they had been previously. Okay. Cornell crow expert Kevin McGowan, do you know him, Sue? Elaborates on this general conclusion, suggesting that perhaps the origin of this folklore is pet crows who are attracted to the objects of obvious value to their owner, like coins, keys, or jewelry. Wow. Speaking personally, I can also attest to the fact that I have never witnessed anything resembling this behavior. So there you have it. Corvids do not, according to the best empirical evidence, show an attraction to or are otherwise known to collect shiny objects.
He knows nothing.
Debunked.
I wish you'd never asked Siri about that.
Right?
I'm sorry. I yucked your yum, didn't I?
Yeah, the lab of ornithology at Cornell, it doesn't really have a very good reputation. Don't worry about it.
So, who on this panel feels like they've found that shiny thing in their life? Not me. Not me. Just keep searching and searching.
Illumination and corruption.
And diving.
Robin got a new necklace. That's pretty shiny.
Oh.
Oh, very shiny.
Oh.
Love it.
Ooh.
Beautiful.
$3 at the secondhand store.
Amazing. Well, Bob, who's dared to do Black Crow?
So Black Crow is the most popular cover from Hejira. 67 covers of this one.
Wow.
Starting with, once again, we go back to the 1992 Back to the Garden Canadian tribute.
Oh, yeah.
Molly Johnson did it on that record. You know, and with the between Hissing and this Hejira discussion, I've gained a lot more respect for that album, because they broke ground on a lot of songs that nobody had ever chased down before. So, I mean, I like all the covers. You know, they're all great.
Right.
But you know, we'll have one more yet to go that will go back to this album. So she was the first in '92. Shortly afterwards, Cassandra Wilson, who we may know that cover better, covered it in '93, and it was brilliant. I actually bought that album, Blue Light Till Dawn. I actually had that record, and when I heard her do Black Crow, I'm like, oh my God, she's doing a Joni song from Hejira. So Diana Krall has done it. It's been recorded in Swedish language, Dutch language. Richard Thompson did it in a really, really great rockin' fashion on the 2000 tribute show.
It was fantastic on that.
Yeah, really fantastic. So it's a lot of nice recordings of this song out there.
A little interesting side note is that compilation was called A Day in the Garden, right? From 91, was it? 92, you said?
92, yeah.
I grew up in a small town, Fredonia, New York, and there's a college there. And that album got a lot of airplay on the radio station. And Joni Mitchell wasn't really played much. I was always like trying to get my friends to listen to Joni Mitchell, but at that time in my world there wasn't much Joni Mitchell. But they played the version of was there a version of This Flight Tonight on there?
Yeah.
Yep. So that was the one that was played a lot.
A band in Canada, and the matter of fact, that recording, I can't think of the name of the band. It was a Canadian band. They're all Canadian people, of course, but the album didn't sell a lot, so it was cut out fairly quickly, and the CD became some of a collector's item. And the followers of this one band were really chasing after the CD, which was, by the way, it's Back to the Garden.
Back to the Garden, yeah.
Was the Joni concert she
That's
did in
right.
'98 up in New York near Woodstock.
Yeah, I apologize, everyone, if I'm a little off. It's been a week of little sleep, so everything's bleh.
Yeah.
But anyway, they played it on the radio, and I Joni Mitchell, everybody. That's Joni Mitchell's song.
Or it's a Nazareth song.
It's a Nazareth. All right, so we're moving on to the Blue Motel Room, and I believe that Dave and Robin are going to take this one on, correct?
Cool.
Do you think we should do a little sound check?
Yeah, do you want me to pause for a second?
I've got a blue motel room with a blue bedspread, got the blues inside and outside my head. Will you still love me when I call you up when I'm down? Here in Savannah, it's pouring rain. Palm trees in the porch light like slick black cellophane. Will you still love me when I call you up when I get back to town? I know that you've got all those pretty pachyderm. Will you tell those girls that you've got German measles, honey? Tell them you got germs. I hope you'll be thinking of me, 'cause I'll be thinking of you when I'm traveling home alone. Tell those girls that you've got Joni. She's coming back home. I've got road maps from 24 states. I've got coast to coast just to contemplate. Will you still love me when I get back to town? It's funny how those old feelings hang around. You think they're gone, no, they just go underground. Will you still love me when I get back to LA town? You and me were like America and Russia. We're always keeping score. We're always balancing the power, and that could get to be a cold war. We're gonna have to hold ourselves a peace talk in some neutral cafe. You lay down, you're sneaking around the town, honey, and I'll lay down the highway. I've got a blue motel room with a blue bedspread. I've got the blues inside and outside my head. Will you still love me when I get back to town?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very
Who
much.
is it?
My favorite version, aside from Joni, is that little girl. I don't know, was she about 3 years old? I've got a blue motel room. She was so good, wasn't she? Oh, sound. I can't. You have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, I unmuted. Yeah, she was walking down the street. She looked so cute.
Ah,
And she was saying great too.
I know. And she was just so cool, you know. Slick black cellophane. Yeah, I wanted to actually be inspired and watch that before, but I don't know. It's deep in the Facebook JMDL somewhere. But that was.
Les,
How
did
old
you
do you think
post
she
that?
was? What? Oh,
I was asking if Les had posted that.
Yeah, I don't know where I found that, but somebody sent it to me. The dad or something sent it to me.
right. How old do you Sue? How old do you think she?
She looked like she was about 3. I mean,
Yeah,
she
that's
did
what I
not
thought
look-
too.
Like she was definitely not ready for school at all.
Yeah.
It was just amazing.
All for the blue motel room.
Oh, man. Mommy and Daddy must like Hejira too.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
So in revisiting these albums, there's always songs that weren't my favorites. when I was younger, and that I revisit, and then I just really fall even more deeply in love with them. And this was the one for this time around. I remember the first time I heard it, like I loved the really dark stuff. I'm like, oh, Blue Motel Room is a little bit corny, but I think it kind of intentionally is in some parts, and that's the charm of it. You tell those girls that Joni's coming home. I just, after such a introspective and self-examination, to just have a little bit of fun, I love it.
I love it too.
I think it's fantastic. This is like it's Dashiell Hammett. This is like she's got this she constructed this standard. She said, yeah, I can write a standard, and just completely constructed it beautifully. I mean, it's worthy.
Of course, there's not many jazz standards that use boom boom pachyderm, that kind of a thing. But that's really Joni too. I mean, that was perfect.
That's hysterical.
Cole Porter would have done it if he thought of it.
Yeah.
But this is the first. People talked about Hissing and Court and Spark as Joni doing jazz. Well, she used the elements of what jazz musicians do, but this is the first song that you can actually say that's jazz.
Mm-hmm.
From the brushes ballad feel to the chords and the
acoustic bass, Chuck DeMonico's acoustic bass.
Exactly. And I'm trying to think what else. Be Cool, was definitely overtly jazz, and
Moon to Window.
Yeah, but very few tunes you can actually say are bona fide jazz, and this is the first and probably the best one. I'm captivated by just the sweetness of it, because she was, her brain was so in fifth gear all the time that this is just kind of such a simple message. It belies the kind of anguish that seemed to be in her head most of the time, the thunderhead of judgment gathering in her gaze. This was all about, will you still love me when I get home? And just that simple. And I love the America and Russia metaphor. It's just like always relevant. But we'll have to hold ourselves a peace talk.
So much contrast in this record, and I'm probably going to go into a little bit more when we get to the next song, because I think the next song just highlights some of what you've just mentioned here with this contrast and what we've seen so far all the way through this record, in terms of her setting up. Sue, you spoke to the duality issues earlier. I mean, it's in full force all through this record.
Jeremy called this a little corny, but I would say Wild Things Run Fast songs like, We Got a Break, and that's corny. This is sweet. It's a bit different.
And I completely agree on both sides of that.
Yes.
But I'd like, tell those girls you got germs.
Yeah.
Boys have germs.
And of course they do.
Absolutely. Bob, I saw your hand was up.
So yeah, I mean, I absolutely love this song. I loved it the first time I heard it on the record, I did most of the record, and it's not a you don't have to go deep dive to understand the lyrics. They're pretty straightforward. And for someone who's been in the Southeast since 1968, the image of palm trees, leaves glued to the window because of the humidity and the rain.
Yes.
Is a very vivid image. I can just close my eyes and see that. This was the song when I met with Joni in '98 after her concert, when I was so lucky to meet with her. I brought up this song immediately. And I said, Joni, this song should be a jazz standard, kind of in line with what you guys have said. And she says, well, yeah, but it's got that lyric about America and Russia, which kind of dates it. And I said, well, yeah, Joni, I said, any standard has a lyric that dates it. That's why it becomes a standard, because you realize, okay, that goes back to the 30s. That goes back to the 40s. This goes to the 60s or 70s or whatever, present day. Obviously, America and Russia, are even up to today, and maybe never will change. But she said, and her comment was, well, it's interesting you say that, because I'm thinking this is in '98. I'm thinking of doing an album of standards for my next record. And of course, that would be what would be Both Sides Now, which she did 2 years later. So I didn't have any albums to autograph, but Marsha did, and she had like 5 records for Joni to sign for her. And Joni's like, sign. When she pulled out Hejira, Joni held it up and looked at it like it was a precious child.
Which it is. Which it is.
Like, yeah, it's like, okay, this is an album that nobody else could have done. Which was that's a direct quote from her, as you said last week. So this song is just a truly, truly amazing song. I love the acoustic bass on it. And at the time, when I bought this record, it came out, I was into the Ramones and punk rock, the beginnings of that thing. And so this was way off the beaten path, especially after Black Crow, which rocks out. This one brings it way down, but with a beautiful acoustic jazz feel to it that thanks to my father, I was raised on the sound. And I recognized it immediately and just totally sunk in the groove, and I'm still there.
So, Bob, when you were talking 3 things, I try to store everything in my head. Number 1, that view you described is right out my bedroom window with the palm trees and the humidity here in Tampa,
sure.
Florida.
Sure, you see it every day.
Number 2, Dave, I guess it doesn't get any more corny than We've Got a Break, Hot Dog, Darling.
Exactly. Hi, Hejira. Just saw you there. Hey, sweetie. So, and then I just wanted to. Did we finish, Jeremy?
I was going to say and this might be something you're going to bring up. How lo-fi the guitar is in this song. It sounds.
I was actually just going on to that because.
So let me turn it over.
So I am pretty sure that she recorded this at home, the guitar part, and then added the rhythm section at A&M. None of the tunes recorded at A&M have that level of tape hiss on them, and it's got this sort of across the kitchen kind of poorly mic'd sound to the guitar. You learn to like it, but it's not what an engineer would do. And I think we know she's had her own tape machine since the mid 60s, so I'm pretty sure that I asked Steve Katz about this, and he said could be, I don't remember, but I think she probably recorded the guitar onto a home reel-to-reel and then brought that into the studio and dumped it onto the multi-track and then brought in the other musicians to play on it.
I have never heard anyone say that before. That's interesting.
Well, if you just listen to the amount of tape hiss and the sort of lack of close micness on the guitar amp, I think she's just stuck her amp down in the house and with the tape recorder with its built-in microphone from 6 feet away recorded her playing through the song and then ended up thinking, oh, that sounds pretty good. I'll use that. And who was going to tell her no?
Dave, off the top of your head, Dave, can you think of some other times when that did happen? Wasn't there a song on Hissing where you felt Joni recorded at home?
Was there?
Or maybe I'm imagining things.
Oh. Yeah, I'm not sure about Hissing. That sounds pretty consistent, but although Sweetbird is a bit of an odd recording.
Right.
I mean, just audio-wise. It sort of comes out of the mist, so that was hard to do in the age of tape because there was so much tape noise, and it's really a long fade in, so you kind of reach for your volume control to hear what's going on, and then suddenly when the vocal comes in, it's too much. So maybe that was a mix decision that could have been better, but yeah, I'm pretty convinced that this tune was recorded the way I said, at home, and it works. But when you hear the bass come in, you realize, oh no, that's a studio recording. As soon as the bass it's beautiful and woody and thick. As soon as the drums and bass come in, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
And her vocal, but the guitar, I think she probably did, like I said.
Well, she plays electric. Larry Carlton plays the acoustic. John Guerin plays the drums, and then Chuck DeMonico, I'm not sure where he came from. It's the only song he ever played on. Plays that acoustic bass.
He was a staple of the LA session scene of the wrecking crew. He may have been one of the wrecking crew. There was a sort of a team of guitarists and a team of bass players, and I think he may have been from done a lot of film work and stuff, because if you just play upright, you're kind of relegated to a certain kind of thing, which is why Max Bennett switched in the 60s, switched from playing upright to electric, because that was where the scene was by then. Everybody wanted Fender bass. But Chuck sounds great on it. And it really sort of stamps the authority of the jazz standard feel more than anything on it.
I love that. I love the bass on the end, where it's boop, 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 that little kind of semi bass solo at the end of the thing to close it out.
Yeah.
It's just brilliant.
This also has the AABA standard jazz form, which contributes to it feeling like a classic. And it's got an improvised break, that not an instrumental solo, but it's Joni kind of doing double, triple tracked vocal improvisation, which she would then go on to do on Mingus, because she was adamant about not having solos on Mingus, but she gave herself some opportunity to do some ad libs like that, and this is the first time I think we've heard that.
I love that John Guerin's on the drums.
Well, this was his element. He started out in the late 50s in San Diego, where we are, or where we're from, as one of the jazz players in town, and then he moved up to LA and got involved with session work, but his background was doing this. So he did a really good job of playing drums in a pop rock style, but as soon as he had a chance to play jazz, you could tell that was kind of where he came from.
Well, do we have any other thoughts on Blue Motel Room? Bob, who's covered it?
30 covers, all of them pretty much from jazzers, because that's just what the song sets off to be. Not an official version, but Prince did it in concert back in 2010 with Elisa Fiorello on the vocal. He's playing guitar on, I think it's a Wonderful Night was the name of that bootleg. So that's that. The first one was, again, David Lahm, who was the first one to pull this one off on his jazz takes on Joni Mitchell from 1999. It's been recorded also in the Polish language.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I'm reading a book, Prince, the studio recordings, 86 and 87. And for the Revolution, he made them learn a big batch of songs for the tour they did in 87. And he made the band learn A Case of You and Blue Motel Room. I don't know if they ever performed it live, but he did make them learn this song. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Cool. Well, Elisa was associated with New Power and with all the Prince stuff.
Was she in that band, the Third Eyed Girl that he did later on?
I don't think so. But,
no,
she was pretty, and he kind of navigated towards some of those pretty girls.
Oh, she's the one that did the solo album when he did that triple set from Target, I think.
Maybe so. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, back to Joni. Well, we're about to tackle a big song here. Too bad we couldn't do the discussion all in 1 week last week, because I did buy my Winn-Dixie cold cuts and ate them. I was too lazy to go back and buy some more today. Chris, are you going to perform?
Probably not.
Okay.
I was just going to do a little, demonstration of that amp, but it's really not worth the time. Thank you, though. The thing about this song is what I was going to say earlier. This song, Refuge of the Roads, is that this song is perfect to close the record because it encapsulates so much and sums it all up. This whole record, this whole tour was so full of perspectives and contrast. And this song is lyrically chock full of them. There's so much richness in the writing of this particular song. And again, like Hejira, she herself here feels very small. You know, she describes her looking at the photograph of the globe taken in space and understanding that she's got the weight of the world on her, you know, on her mind right now, but it means nothing. It's invisible. It's inconsequential. It's temporary. It's so much there aren't a lot of grand lessons. I think she wanted to be able to sum up a grand lesson for everybody, and it said, finally came up with the lesson being there is no lesson. And I know last week I was talking more about how the DJ and I were talking about where her head was and her psychology and all the changes that she was experiencing in life and how she was writing them, and you know how sometimes it was kind of scary because you know it was a new vulnerability that was not romantic but fatalistic and existential and somehow bigger than her, more about humanity, and in that regard more consequential for all of us. But when she comes down to the end of it all, there's no grand lesson. There really isn't. Just the imagery is so stark, so beautiful, so rich, and so black and white for her. Again, this is a grand package of work because graphically it so supported the imagery that was written lyrically and performed musically. It's just it's a perfect piece of work. I can't say anymore.
Really is. I love that he saw my complications and he mirrored me back simplified, and then, but it only lasted a couple of hours before the thunderhead of judgment, and you know so she just had this little glimpse of clarity before realizing that she could never keep it. I'm not sure if it goes on from what you were saying, but it's definitely a life lesson kind of a song, and for me that's a powerful moment where Trungpa, is that his name?
Trump, Triumph, something like that.
Yeah, not Trump.
Like that. Not Trump.
Trungpa.
That guy.
Where he immediately was able to kind of disarm her, you know, because she probably comes with the best defenses money can buy, but he instantly was able to see through all of her complications and mirror her back simplified, and to her astonishment. And it was all so light and easy, you know, till I started analyzing. That's probably the lesson contained most in the song is the urge to analyze everything, which is what makes her such a brilliant artist, is kind of the source of her melancholy, because she just can't live an unencumbered, simple existence like the waitresses in
Bar and Grill.
Yeah, which she kind of genuinely missed that. She kind of yearned for that. Just how fun it must be to just talk about your boyfriend in Singapore slings.
Have that be enough.
None of the crazy you get from too much choice.
Yeah, that's the theme right there.
All right, now David.
Yeah, I want to say my favorite lyric in here is we laughed how our perfection will always be denied, and I just take that to heart over and over and over again through my life. And now as an old wise person, I say it to young people. You know?
Except I've just pronounced this whole album as perfect. So
you know, I say this to young people: you got to start laughing because your perfection will always be denied.
Well,
Then he says, heart and humor and humility will lighten up your heavy load.
Although that's her quoting somebody else saying that.
That's true.
I was always impressed how she could see a calendar hanging in a gas station and come up with that last stanza or whatever you want. It's just brilliant.
so beautiful.
And to realize that it's, you know, triggered by a calendar hanging in a gas station, it's crazy.
It's like the mirrored windows
Yeah,
through the
exactly.
mirrors of the hotel room.
Yeah.
It's that prosaic reality that triggers this very perceptive thought.
Think about
And if you think you're important, you know, you see the globe from outer space, and you know you can't see a city or a forest or a highway or me here least of all. You know, I mean, you're so totally not even a dot on the scope of things.
So many different perspectives. We come from such different sets of circumstance. You know, he sees the cars as sets of waves, sequences of mass and space, wide. He sees the damage in my face, this close. You know, I mean, she's constantly taking us in and out and showing us contrast and direction. And this song, for me, again, just sort of makes it come full circle. It is a perfect choice.
I think, personally, I think that's the best part about the entire album. I mean, if you think about it, you know, the whole idea of a Hejira is sort of like a trying to find yourself through a spiritual journey, right? So you're going to interact and react with so many different people in so many different places, and that's going to be what helps you find yourself. So that, I think, is where a lot of that is coming from. You know, she is literally stating all of these things that have gotten her to where she is and where she's going.
All right, we'll do Sue then Bob.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, just getting off on that. I mean, that's kind of what I was going to say, was this whole album's like a spiritual journey. And, you know, another way that I can relate to this album in my own life is to show all the damage that happens, and then how you grow from it, you know, and what you understand. I mean, if you're really paying attention, what you really understand at the end of all this is that, you know, it's just the beauty of life, you know. That's the most important thing, you know. It's, you know, there's just so much crap that we go through, and there's so much, you know, pain, and, you know, and you know, the whole act of trying to work stuff out, you know, like this whole thing where she's trying to work out these relationships and trying to work out, you know, I think that part of the thing that she was talking about with Trumka, I'm thinking of the union boss. No, not him. Yeah, Trumpa, was that she was having this problem with her cocaine addiction, you know, and he was trying to help her with that. And, you know, I can relate to that through my own journey with alcohol addiction, of just trying to get to the point where I can be free of all attachments, you know, of all the things that I think I want. And then you get it down to like this basic thing of walking out on my front lawn and seeing like this incredible vista where I live, you know, because I can sit in my house and not go anywhere and feel miserable and unhappy. But when you go out and you see the beauty of the world, and, you know, that whole, I mean, it's almost like you're going through this thing right through with her of all the different things through the album. And, and, we're only particles of change in Hejira, you know, all this stuff where we're getting rid of self and just being, you know, being and really recognizing that we live in an incredible planet, and there's so much beauty and there's so much love too, you know.
Yeah.
And You know, it's just, I mean, only in that album have I been able to really see all the stuff that you know, and I didn't realize it when I first heard it. You know, obviously years go by, and it's still that important. You know, nothing like she's even talking about the, you know, oh well, the, you know, America and Russia is dated, but it's not dated. You know, it's still the same thing. There's still these wars going on. There's still all this stuff. You know, and I've talked to you know, kids who listen to Joni for the first time. She goes, I have no idea what she's talking about, this America and Russia. I go, yeah, because you were not born when there was a Cold War, so you don't know. You don't know what that means.
It just became a proxy war.
Yeah, right.
We've been fighting it ever since.
Yeah, exactly. It could be Afghanistan, Iraq, whatever. But yeah, I mean, I just parallels all of the stuff that I had to go through, and I'm like, wow, you know, how could she do that? How could she write this? You know, it's just so beautiful. And this is a beautiful song. You know, I was thinking about playing this song, but I wanted to challenge myself with Black Crow. But I play this song a lot. I play this song as a meditation sometimes. It's just so beautiful.
So is this the only song where she uses that open F tuning?
Yeah, I think so. There's a couple of, like, Silky Veils of Ardor has one different string, but I think Silky Veils of Ardor is the only close one.
The chords in this tune are really fantastic.
Yeah, they're beautiful.
So guitar-wise, this is probably my favorite of her tunes on the record.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bob.
Yeah, the guitar textures, the textures of this song are so amazing. At one of Ashara's Joni fests up in near Woodstock, I got to sing the song with Marion playing guitar, and I was just in awe of the chord changes, especially, you know, I guess maybe it changes keys at some point at some point in the song, where there's all these, you know, really strange, and Dave, you can address it, the chord patterns, but the guitar textures are just incredible. And then the only other comment I will make before I come back and say more about it is that, like Black Crow, she changed He Drank in Woman Eyes to A Drunk with Sage's Eyes pretty much after she wrote it, and every time she would play it live. Instead of He Drank in Woman Eyes, it was A Drunk with Sage's Eyes.
Okay, respond to that. So in terms of the drunken Sage's Eyes, it's like, I actually thought of that in the last change. I like the original better. Love and music instead of truth and beauty. And when I see a drunk with Sage's Eyes, I run. You know, I so don't want to see anybody's drunken sageness. Just completely, you know.
Do that again.
I think. Go ahead,
Chris. You gonna play?
Can't hear you.
Can't hear you even though you're not muted.
While he's working on that, I just have a point to make about the production on this song. I'm pretty sure that this was cut together out of 2 different takes. If you listen to the opening lines up to Heart and Humor, all of a sudden the tempo goes up 5 beats per minute as soon as she hits Heart and Humor. And that would very likely happen if you splice different takes together, that you like the beginning of and then you like the rest of it, but didn't pay too much attention to the fact that the tempos were different. Nowadays, you'd probably record to a click track, but back then that was very rare. So that's a kind of an interesting thing, that the tune kind of gets progressively faster as it goes on. It starts out pretty relaxed and gets quicker. And then the other thing is that really at about that point, the Heart and Humor point, the bass and drums go into a reggae feel. Anybody else ever notice that? This was the first time that reggae had hit, you know, outside of Jamaica, and musicians everywhere. I remember back in England, everybody was trying to insert some reggae into their music because it was the latest thing. So if you listen to the bass and drums, what they're doing, it's reggae without the chink, 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 without that thing, which is called the skank. But there's it's really cool. And so Garen and Jocko must have agreed to go into that feel at that moment. And anyway, I'd never heard it pointed out before, but I thought it was really, from a rhythm section angle, that was kind of a cool thing about this song.
Dave, I think it's interesting that you brought that up because, you know, there may be many instances when Joni kind of cuts and pastes things of her own together. Because like with Wayne Shorter, you know, she'd have him do 4 or 5 takes, and then she'd just like chop it all up, and she'd like, I like this section, I'm gonna put that there, blah 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 blah. So you're never really hearing a Wayne Shorter solo. You're hearing Joni's interpretation of what Wayne's doing, and she probably did that a lot on her own too with her guitar work.
Right, but if you make your bed track be chopped up, then there's an inconsistency in sometimes tuning, but certainly tempo, unless you work with a click.
Like Paprika Plains.
Nowadays, yeah, Paprika Plains, a famous example where the song was recorded in sections, multiple different times, 3 different pianos, and until it's pointed out, you don't really, it's not jarring or anything, but if you kind of analyze it the way we do, then you start to hear the difference. But anyway, I love this tune so much, but I just think it's it kind of bothers my ear, the tempo picking up so much, just because I'm thinking, oh, why did they do that? You know, why didn't they catch that? But of course,
I have never heard that.
That is the only thing that you can say that is a possible detraction.
I think the cool thing about that, though, is that it is very reflective of life. And again, to go back to that spiritual journey, it's not always at a pace, right? Even within the same experience.
Yeah, no, you can definitely draw a metaphor, parallel the metaphor, that way. Just in terms of, but if you just start off with this blank piece of tape and start recording, normally you try to get a very steady foundation, right? And
But
Joni's known for her pocket.
I
That's
was going to say, normally does not apply to Joni, though.
well, I mean, Graham Nash and I think Crosby just recently said, apart from all the tunings and the lyrics and everything, she was just a fabulous rhythm player, just really, really solid. And this might be like the one example where you can say, well, it wasn't quite solid,
Well, I have something to add, and I don't know how to say this without sounding kind of stupid, but my life's been full of, like everybody's, there's just been a lot of tragedy and a lot of crap. And being a musician, I do a lot of driving from city to city by myself. And there's always been a lot of noise and chaos in my head and heart. But one place where the noise is always a little bit less for me and things feel okay is always at a highway service station. I just think of so many times I'm just by myself at 2 a.m, just sitting at a picnic table, drinking some yoo-hoo, looking at the pine trees and the stars. So that's why that last verse, just like, I almost want to start crying, because like, I don't know what God is, but it might just be just sitting at a picnic table, having a drink, looking at the stars as the cars go by at 2 a.m. And that's why this album just means so much to me. I love it.
I can hear what you're hearing, just the crickets and the cars, hissing by. That's incredible.
It's one of the only times in my life that the noise is ever, one of the only places that the noise ever gets turned down for me.
Well, there was an instance where living in Raleigh when I was in college, I had a buddy who worked at a Winn-Dixie as a checkout guy, and it was a Friday night. We were hanging out somewhere, and he said, "Well, there's nothing happening here. Let's go to the beach." So I said, "All right, let's go to the beach." It was like 10 o'clock on a Friday night. I grabbed my jam box, to play some tapes in the car for the road trip. We went to the Winn-Dixie where he worked. He walked in with a cooler, and he told his boss, "I'm going fishing. Can I get some ice for my cooler?" And his boss says, yeah, fill your cooler up with ice, go in the back. So he goes in the back, fills the cooler full of beer, pours ice on the top, puts some cold cuts in there, and then we head in his paneled station wagon and head off to the beach. So it's like Winn-Dixie cold cuts, highway hand-me-downs. Yep, been there, done that.
Oh, David.
I was I'm sorry. I was just gonna say also that was something else I was gonna say earlier to kind of tie in with what I was saying about the spiritual journey, and we were talking about America and Russia. Is that is the weird dichotomy of Joni, is that she is both simultaneously timeless and yet timely, right, in her songs. Like there is a moment that she's talking about, and you do have that, oh, I remember when I was hanging out with my friend, and then at the same time, here you go, and you can listen to it years later, and it is still just as relevant to you, and that's the thing. Like I discovered Joni when I was 13, and every single album, I'm like, oh, I remember when I was this age, and it meant so much to me, and then yet, here I am, and I hear it with different ears because of my life experiences. And I think that's just like the best part about her, is that, she can grow with you at all walks of time, all walks of your life. And it means as much, if not more.
Everything you say, I'm like, yes. Yeah. Oh, David.
Oh.
Okay. Two things. First, I love the muscular clouds. I mean, that like seems so Joni to me. All of Joni's work is like muscular clouds. And I love the way it ends. This is like the end of the whole album is, I guess, Jocko going, boo, boo, boo. Notice that last boom. It's
Almost like a comedy ending.
Yeah.
You have to really turn the volume up to hear that bass bomb ending.
Well, she's westbound and rolling with this baggage overload. It's like she's still on the move. She's still seeking. She's not anywhere really that she wants to be, or that she's going to settle.
And the baggage is all kinds of baggage.
Yep.
Right? No resolution. No resolution.
I think it's fitting that Jocko sort of makes himself be the ending, because she said that he was just so willful that once she brought him into the fold, he just took over, and he would sit at the mixing desk while they were mixing the record uninvited and start pushing the bass tracks higher than the vocals. And she'd say, well, wait a minute. You're making it louder than the lead vocal. And he'd look at her like, you got a problem with that? Yeah. He was just such a powerful personality that she just let him do it.
That's why she left him off Silky Veils of Ardor. She's like, nope, I'm ending this album on my own.
My husband was waiting in the background.
I just want to kind of reiterate what David said about the clouds of Michelangelo. If I'm ever out driving around and I turn the corner or something and there's a massive cloud, I have to sing it every single time. People think I'm crazy, but it's like it just comes out of my mouth. I love so much of how cinematic this album is, and that's a perfect example.
Sun gold. There's gold again. Muscular with gods and sun gold.
But it's what follows it too. Shine on your witness. I mean, that's kind of like, this is all the stuff we've just listened through, we've heard, we've talked about, we've lived through. Now make sense of it. Shine on your witness. This is, she's saying, you know what? I've got baggage. You've got some baggage too. I know. Let's all, let's all carry our bags wherever we're headed.
I like the beginning of that verse too. I went running down a white sand road and I was running like a white ass deer. Running to lose the blues to the innocents in here.
For the longest time, I always thought she was saying white ass girl.
Oh my God.
That makes sense. She's a white girl. She's got a white ass. I presume I've seen half of it on her album. But anyway.
My white ass girl.
She was a white girl till the next album cover, at least. The thing about Joni is that makes her in a really caliber of her own is that she has different masterpieces throughout her career that appeal to whole different audiences of people. Because like Blue right now, so many people are talking about Blue. We love it, but Hejira is just a masterpiece that just appeals to us. Like it's just such a deep intellectual album. That's just the beauty of Joni Mitchell is she's done it multiple times. I don't know. I can't even talk.
Well, you know what we have to look forward to? The 50th anniversary of Hejira coming up. All of her albums.
Right.
And Rhino's gonna do something special probably for every single one of them. So it's gonna be great.
Yeah.
Well,
Finally,
to love Blue, you have to have a heart. To carry this record the way we all carry it, I think we have to know a little bit about her process and how she writes and what she was up against and where her struggles were. Without that knowledge a little bit, I think it's perhaps not as universal emotionally as it's wordy, and you have to have a vocabulary for that.
I think I disagree with you. I disagree simply because I feel like, especially now in this last couple of years, I mean, like Sue was saying, everybody's been having, some heartaches and tragedy, and it's, in a way, I mean, even though it seems like a lot of people are immature these days, in a way it is maturing a lot of people and having them really face, real life. And so even though I think everybody's kind of in their Blue period, I feel like these, we're saying we love Hejira, but I feel like this next generation is going to hear Hejira and all of a sudden be like, holy shit, where the hell has this lady been my whole life?
Oh, I love that.
You know what line
From
just
your
came
lips,
into my
let
head?
it happen. Yeah.
I just got in my head this line: "Religion is for people who don't want to go to hell, and spirituality is for people who've been there."
Oh my God, it's perfect.
Yeah, and it's like this whole idea that to go through this stuff. I mean, that's the only way you can relate to it. Sometimes, I mean, yeah, we know that she gave up her baby for adoption. We know she, was really poor. She got in a lousy marriage, and then and just her struggles with just being creative. I mean, that's the thing that attracts me to her is just she's completely courageous when it comes to her art, and there's just nothing. I mean, the boldness is just mind-boggling. I mean, and she's got the talent too, and she's incredibly talented. But you can't really be the type of person she is without the courage too. To just be totally honest and write like that. It's incredible.
I think it's also interesting on the last couple albums, Joni talked about how, at that point she had the success and she had the money and the designer clothes or whatever. And then when you get to this album, it shows that you can get everything and that longing doesn't go away. Like the itch never really gets scratched. And that's what this album is.
I think there was a move if obviously many things changed from Blue to Hejira in those 5 years you talked about, Jeremy, but I think there was a real transition from her primary thing being vulnerability in those earlier songs on Blue and For the Roses, and big part of her fan base formed itself around people who felt similarly vulnerable and thought, well, she's telling my story. And that explains why people are so wed to Blue, and in particular because it's so naked and vulnerable and expresses the things that you really can't bring yourself to say but are feeling. But by the time of Hejira, she was more of a philosopher and had more of this distance from herself. She's able to see herself as a fly on the wall. But also kind of like I think Chris was saying, just the magnificence of the planet and the big picture and the people that you meet on it, that captivated her interest far more by this point than just her own insecurities and vulnerabilities. So I wrote recently that Joni Mitchell fans form themselves into kind of two camps: the people that adore the vulnerable artist and got very annoyed when she refused to be vulnerable anymore, and kind of blamed it on jazz or something. But from this record or Hissing onward, she was no longer so much vulnerable as really a philosopher and able to crystallize these incredible observations so beautifully into very condensed lyrics. And the music mirrored it perfectly. If it didn't, you wouldn't get the same power from it. So the actual instrumentation and the production and everything is all fully supporting the wisdom.
Yeah, I was going to say that for me, Blue is raw emotion, and for Hejira, it's you're breaking it down, you're analyzing it. The emotion is there, the hurt, the pain, the joy, all of it. But like you said, Dave, she's become a philosopher, and she's matured, and she's really starting to break things down, and a lot of it's in the head now. Whereas with Blue, it was more in the gut.
Yeah.
In Blue, she was the camera in many ways. She was all of what we were listening to and feeling was filtered through her experience. Here, I really think that yes, it's to some extent it's the same thing, but she's working as the nexus. She's the point of convergence. She's constantly working all of those different other people's perspectives. Furry is angry and jealous because we've got this limousine and we don't understand W.C. Handy and all of the and she's honestly, I used the word dilettante last week. She's allowing herself to consider that she's out of her element and she doesn't belong there, and it's right that she's getting shit for what she's brought there because it's not authentic. And there's very few people who can turn that into their art, who don't want to say this is the truth. She's saying maybe I don't know the truth. Maybe I've never really loved. All of these questions that she is allowing herself and other people to see her for. Incredible.
Play it?
What's that?
Are you gonna play it?
I don't know if it'll work. I'll try, but I don't sing, so I can't do all of it. So it'll just be a small portion of it.
Yeah, just give us a little sampler, if you will.
All right, you're gonna have to give me. I can't hear when I'm playing. I have to mute it, so you're gonna have to give me like hand signals if it's too loud, too soft, or just not working.
Yeah, nice, Chris.
Beautiful.
I don't know what that sounded like, but I guess I'll find out.
Sounded awesome.
It was really lovely.
That was that. You kind of nailed the tone there.
But that's the amp, the whatchamacallit,
Roland.
the Roland. I've got that feeding a small, tiny little mixer, and there's no EQ or anything on it. It's just straight out of the amp, just like that.
Now, the percussive guitar hit became such a big part of her playing, especially later on in the 90s. But is Refuge the only time that happens on this album?
No, it happens in Amelia too. She slaps.
Oh, she does slap in Amelia? Okay.
It doesn't really work very well on electric though, because you're
You're right. You're absolutely right, Dave. It doesn't work because this is a solid body, and it sounds awful because the piezo pickups just make it sound horrible.
Well,
the
on a-
hollow bodies are great.
yeah, but on a guitar with humbuckers, your string ends up pinging the pole piece on the pickups. So when you whack it, it just makes a boink sound. It doesn't give you the percussion thing that you're looking for. She talks about this in an interview, whereas playing electric was lighter. You know, she was able to get her sounds that she wanted, and so it had all kinds of advantages, and there was no feedback issues and all the nightmare of being an acoustic guitarist. But the style that she developed, which was this kind of pluck, strum, slap kind of routine over and over, that's very hard to do on electric.
I'll learn someday.
Especially a Strat, something where, and if you got, Joni had long fingernails because you have to and I do too. That is a problem on electric guitar because they bottom out on the pickups. So there's only this little window between the pickups where you can actually strum or grab the strings. Whereas acoustic, you got the whole area to work with and nothing in the way.
I love guitarists that can, actually make the percussive nature of the body work for them. And there are some artists that really do it well, and can bring an entire orchestra together. But one thing I've noticed too is this piece of guitar, this particular song on the record, and maybe Dave, you play them all, so you'll tell me if there's others as well. For me, this was the most orchestral guitar arrangement on the record. That she is playing like woodwinds, she's playing like strings in different places. There's
I think so. Of course, she actually did bring Tom Scott in to play woodwinds, so he makes a cameo appearance on this tune, doubling the da 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 da. So she actually has him double what she is doing on the guitar.
It's Tom Scott's last time on a Joni Mitchell album?
Yeah.
Yep.
Was he on Shine? On anything in Shine?
I think that was Bob Shepard, who was another incredible L.A.
Steely Dan. Oh yeah.
Sax player. But no, Tom Scott. He was on the Joni's Jazz 2011 that we just had the 10-year anniversary last week of, that we all went to Hollywood Bowl. Yeah, he was in the horn section for that. I mean, he remembers that time with her very fondly. Loves that music, and he was the first musician that she brought on board from outside of the, the Russ Kunkel,
right?
Stephen Stills kind of world that she was a part of originally. The first time, Bobby Hall on For the Roses and Tom Scott were the first true session musicians that she had on one of her records.
So Tom came to us in Cold Blue Steel, and he left us on Refuge, right?
I guess you could look at it that way. But he had a job to do because they were just working together in the studio, and she couldn't tell him anything about what she was doing. So he couldn't ask her what chord she was playing or anything because she couldn't tell her. She couldn't tell him. And apparently, when he first came on board in for the Roses, she didn't even know the names of the notes on the piano.
Oh, wow.
So I find that a little bit of a stretch because she was writing very sophisticated piano pieces, but it's possible that she was just so good at this rote memorization of things that she'd come up with that she could play it perfectly, but not know technically what it was. And when the rest of the guys came on for Court and Spark, they looked at each other and said, "Well, what's she doing?" And said, "Damned if I know." You know, you couldn't look at her hand and get a clue because of the tunings, and you couldn't ask her. And I think it was it Robin Ford or one of them said, "Oh, could you just?" They were making a chart for themselves. Could you just take it from the bridge? And she said, "No, I can't. I can only play it from the beginning." So, you know, her songs were pretty much note for note memorized, and you can hear that on something like Banquet, or every time there's a verse, it's like note for note, the piano is exactly the same. And it was the same on Court and Spark too. She could play Help Me start to finish perfectly, but if she said, "Could you pick it up from this section?" she couldn't.
Even earlier on that, from then the piano, I just started learning Blue Boy, and I can tell you this: that you drop one note, and it's a completely different phrase of music. It does not. It's like a jigsaw puzzle. It's so exquisitely cut around itself.
Mm-hmm.
It really is.
Questions. So, one, Chris, what is the badge?
When I was a kid, I was in the crossing guard, and they this guitar strap is the exact same fabric that those straps were made of. So when I got the guitar strap, I said, "Well, I have to find a badge," and so I found a badge to go on it. That's all.
And second is for everybody else. Does anybody know who Boston Jim was?
It's James Taylor.
I always thought it was a meeting between like Crosby, Stills, and Nash, like on Crosby's boat, and that it was the whole group of the friends from the Laurel Canyon area. You know, I well up with affection thinking back down the road till then.
The only thing we know about him is he owes her a dinner.
So I don't think I made up the James Taylor thing. I mean, I'm sure I heard it. It's on the internet somewhere, so it must be true.
Well, this album just takes your breath away, doesn't it? Does anyone have any final thoughts on Refuge of the Road? It's kind of sad. I've been looking forward to this discussion from the first one we started, and I don't want it to end. Can we just talk about this again in a few months? We'll just start from track one.
I was just listening.
I'm really looking forward to next month and next month.
Yeah.
Wasn't it Robin Ford?
I just want to call out the fact that she does reference, I guess it's a Holly song, Turn, Turn, Turn. I heard my fate turn, turn, turn.
Oh.
That always stood out to me in this lyric. But just throwing it out there.
Wasn't it Robin Ford's wife that suggested she goes visit Trung Pa? Does anybody else read that?
I don't know who it was.
I think it was Robin Ford's wife said that she knew of this guy in Colorado, and when you're passing through, you should go see him. And so that was how she found out about him.
When she first met him, didn't she tell him that cocaine was her god?
Oh yeah,
That's true.
She really gave him a snarky comeback. So,
But he mirrored her back simplified.
Well, how did he correct her? What did he say to her? Do we know what the message was, or is that, proprietary?
Maybe heart and humor and humility will lighten up your heavy load.
I don't think he would be the first one to tell her that she needed some humility. No?
Well, Trungpa's whole thing, if you summarize his whole Buddhist teachings, was the whole crazy wisdom thing. So she uses that somewhere, right?
Yeah.
His crazy wisdom holding on to
Onto
something
something
wild.
wild.
Strange boy.
So if you read anything about Trungpa, those are the two words that sum up basically his whole, all of his teachings throughout the years. It was crazy wisdom.
Well, she did travel incognito part of the time, so these people didn't supposedly know who the hell she was, and so she was just another drifter or somebody on the road to them. And it must have given her some kind of perspective of humility or what it was like to be part of the hoi polloi and not a rock star,
There's somebody on the list, not on the list, I don't know, her name's D.G. Broughton. Anybody know her?
Yeah.
Yeah. She was, Joni actually, on this Hejira trip, Joni actually stopped at her house and stayed a couple of nights under her nom de plume or whatever. And I don't think DG or whatever knew who she was, or was a Joni fan at all, or at the time, and didn't really know who she was. But it's a real interesting story. I'm gonna have to refresh my memory on her story.
I guess one thought I had, I find this album very melancholy, and the fact that Joni uses the line "There's comfort in melancholy," that sums up my relationship with this album. I find a great deal of comfort in it, even though it is very melancholy in tone.
It's interesting to me that this last song, as we've remarked, it doesn't give any kind of answer or any kind of conclusion, but it's kind of upbeat. I mean, I always feel kind of uplifted by it, and but I agree with you, Jack. I mean, the overall feeling of the album is melancholy, and there's comfort in melancholy, and I think all of us here know that and have felt that at one time or another.
Looking ahead to how it's treated on Travelogue, what you're saying is really right, Mark, because there's a lightness to this. You can what the image that I get when I listen to the Travelogue version is that they've taken the chords that I was playing and picking out, and they've given it to the harp, and it sounds like what you could hear if you're rising above the clouds and coming out of something dark into just a beautiful sunshine. There's a real lightness to it that I think was hinted to in this current arrangement on Hejira, but probably gets even fleshed out more by Vince Mendoza and Joni later on.
I think she is saying that she did learn something. I mean, more than one thing probably on this whole spiritual journey, as Hejira put it. But she's still going to be seeking the rest of her life. I think maybe now I think Robin mentioned this the last time, she's kind of seems to be settled in and more relaxed. I don't know. But she's probably going to be seeking the rest of her life. And there's no final answer.
Well, we ended up talking about this album for about 7 hours total, right?
Hey,
It's worthy. It's worthy of that.
after last week, my wife couldn't believe how long we were here, and I says, "We only made it halfway through." She's like, "What are you talking about?" I says, "Hey, it's Hejira, So yeah, she was very surprised that we were able to do this for so long.
I think one of the last things we need to do here is settle on the pronunciation of the word. Everybody's saying it differently.
Les, how do you say it?
You missed Jamie Saberi telling us.
Oh, yeah, I missed that.
Well, it's 2 syllables.
Who's got the album?
Hejira.
Hejira. But then I heard Joni say Hejira.
Joni lies once again.
She's wrong.
But Jamie,
I say Hejira.
Correct.
It's not a lie. It doesn't matter if it was true or false before she says it. After she says it, it's
Okay, let's do something stupid just for fun. Let's go around and I'm going to call on everybody. You have to say how you pronounce it. I called it Hejira growing up. Then when I heard Joni was Hejira. Okay,
Hejira?
Chris.
Always Hejira because it's close to my name.
Les, I missed yours. I talked over you. What was it?
Exactly like yours. Hejira, then Hejira when I heard Joni say it.
Perfect. All right, Chris.
Can't hear you.
You're
Hands
on
off.
mute.
That better?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep.
yes, we heard you.
No good?
Yeah, no, it's good. We hear you.
Okay. I always said Hejira, but now I say Hydra because I can't be politically incorrect. I have to.
The cancel culture is coming for those. Okay. Bob.
So I always call it vagina.
Oh.
No, I called it Hejira forever because that's what the DJs in Raleigh called it. And then it was
Hejira?
Hejira forever and ever. That's what Joni called
Mexican
it. But then
DJs?
Jamie, yeah. Then Jamie said Hejra. So from now on, it's Hejra because I mean he's a Muslim, so he knows the pronunciation. So I respect that knowledge.
So did you eat a euro when you were listening to Hejira?
Not yet, but I will do that.
Oh, I'm gonna go get a euro. I'm hungry. Okay, Jack.
Hejira.
Hejira. Okay, David
Well, I think
Robin.
when it first came out, I was probably Hejira.
Hejira.
You started out this conversation, Hejira.
Hejira, but I like the sound of that better than Hedra, but I'll go with Hedra. But I think Hejira has kind of a nice
Don't buckle.
Hejira, you know.
Don't buckle to Bob's whims.
Yeah, me too. I've always said Hejira, but now that I know how the word is actually pronounced, I'm kind of thinking, well, I ought to honor that.
And you know, she was attracted to the dangling J.
Yeah.
And Hedra kind of loses that a little bit.
Yeah, I don't think Joni herself knew how the word was pronounced.
It certainly it sounds less Italian, that's for sure.
Well, on Dreamland, she says samba, and that's not, it's samba. So she's not always right.
She always says reoccurring dream.
Yep. And clandestine.
Jewelry.
Yeah, and Skuels.
Skuels, our favorite. All right, Mark, how do you pronounce it?
I think when it came out, I probably said Hejira, but now I call it Hejira.
All right, David.
I have like no idea. Having heard the word over and over again, but going forward, I'm going to go with Hejra.
Hejra? All right, and last but not least, Sue.
I've always called it Hejira. And, you know, it's funny because I was so young when I first heard the album. So I must have heard a DJ or somebody pronounce it Hejira. And, you know, Joni calls it that. So I'm going to keep saying Hejira.
All right, so I'm going to stick with Hejira too.
So my name is, in Arabic, it would be pronounced Jaheda. And it's from the word jihad, right? Which is similar to what Hejira means because it's about that internal struggle to find oneself through like spirit, right? Your own spiritual journey. So, but when you also put in the E sound, right? In certain, like especially with the I, like a lot of times my name has been pronounced Jaida. So it's, for me, that's why when I saw Hejira, spelled that way, I was like, oh, that must be how you say it, because it's similar in that respect. And I mean, I grew up around a lot of Arabics and Muslims in Jersey City, so I don't know. I guess I feel like that's how it was always pronounced, but now with hearing Hejira, I'm like, well, maybe. I like Hejira. I think it's pretty.
You and Jamie need to hash it out.
I've just had Hejira my whole life, and I don't want to let it go.
You don't.
I agree.
Well, we always end these discussions with rating the album on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being a masterpiece, 1 being a flop. Do we even need to do that in this discussion? Is there anyone that ranks it less than 10?
11.
I reckon an 11. It's an 11. It's more than 10.
It goes to 11.
Speaking of 11, 7-Eleven have just hijacked Spinal Tap, and their new slogan is taking it to 11.
What took them so long?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I agree. 11. It's definitely an 11.
Best album ever.
Best album ever. Okay, how many people on this panel say this is the best album ever?
Well, I believe it's tied. Hejira and Blood on the Tracks are the 2 greatest albums ever made.
Okay.
I'm partial to Boston minor maths too, so
There were 5 or 6 best albums ever.
yeah.
Bob, did I do the Refuge of the Rogues covers, or did I skip by that?
We skipped by that. It's not a lot to go on. There are 10. And once again, for the last time, we go back to the Garden, the Canadian tribute with Rocket Science, a very, very weird cover of Refuge of the Roads. So it's not a commonly done song. I mean, artists wouldn't pick this song to do, but most of them are kind of strange.
Kevin Danzig do this song? Kevin Danzig did.
Oh yeah.
He didn't release it.
Yeah, but he did a good version of it.
Yeah.
I love his version of Trouble Child too. It's really great.
Yep.
When he said Danzig, I thought you meant Glenn Danzig. I'm like, he did Refuge of the Rogues.
They were talking about that. I was like, that's a weird mix.
I'm like, okay. Well, I guess in a month we're gonna meet and head over to Cotton Avenue. Take a piss in a parking lot.
We'll have to pull out our 2015 Joni Fest shirts.
Yeah, my Greenville T-shirt that Sue designed and had printed.
Oh, I love it. All right. Well, thank you all for. I know this wasn't on the schedule originally, but any final thoughts, Les?
Hey, when is this going up live on YouTube?
Tomorrow.
Either tonight or tomorrow.
Oh, I have an announcement that I don't want anybody to hear on YouTube tomorrow or till tomorrow. So maybe
Okay, I'll hold it till tomorrow then. Tomorrow morning.
Tomorrow at noon.
Yeah, I'll do it when I get home from work. Not a problem.
Cool. Big announcement tomorrow. Joni is being named as the 2022 Music Cares Artist of the Year. It's only been given to a few people, and there's a big gala on January 29th in LA. It's going to be star-studded, and Joni has committed to attending. So it's going to be all over the socials tomorrow and everywhere. So it's a pretty cool honor.
Are we going?
We're going to have a Joni Fest out there, so everybody get ready.
When is this?
Yeah,
What is it, January 28th?
It's being announced at noon tomorrow, so don't say anything. But then I think the gala event is January 29 out in LA somewhere.
Cool.
Exciting.
Wow.
Close to us.
Good.
An exclusive.
That's a great month to go to California for me.
Yeah. It's my birthday week.
Yeah.
Right, look, we can all celebrate.
We won't even be on fire by January.
Now I know what to tell my wife what I want.
Yeah.
I don't know how hard it'd be to get tickets. It's probably going to be one of those things where 98% of the tickets are taken up by stars and
Industry.
all that. Yeah,
Not regular folks.
right.
You're like, Joni, don't you want the host of Phonogenics 101 at your event?
That'd be nice.
All right. Well, thank you all for letting me in your world. I just treasure these so much. I always shed a tear. Today was no exception. So, shall we do this again next month with Art Nouveau?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
His daughter.
Jeremy, I just
Yeah,
want
a
to
2 record set. How many times do you have to meet to go through Don Juan's record's daughter?
Yeah.
Jeremy, I just want to say thanks for doing this. I mean, I wish we all would have thought of this years ago. This is the coolest thing ever, and it should have been done a long time ago. So thanks for doing this, and thanks for the idea. It's a great idea.
Oh,
I think of all the albums, this is the first one after doing these that I'm feeling kind of sad about leaving it.
I know.
You know, I mean, I love the other albums, but it's a little emotional, isn't it?
Well, maybe
Well, it is because, with this record, she raised the bar to a level with which neither she nor any other artist will ever reach again.
Yeah.
I mean, Les mentioned Blood on the Tracks. For me, my top 3, Blood on the Tracks, Hejira, Blue Valentines by Tom Waits, which all came out in like a 2-year span. Those are my top 3 records. And I can change around Blue Valentines and Blood on the Tracks, but Hejira is always number 1 for me, and always will be. And Joni will never match it again. She'll do some good work, which we'll talk about. But this is a landmark record that was just a time and a place and an amazing thing. Which when it dropped, I only had a little bit of that knowledge, and as I live and gain life experience and study and analyze, I gain more, and it's made me a better, deeper, more compassionate, smarter person.
I'd like to just echo that thought, Bob, and we were talking about maturity earlier. I think this record helped all of us mature. It gave us a map, of things to be aware of,
and at times makes you feel like you're just not so alone. Like someone else thinks these things and says it very eloquently. And Robin, I so feel what you're saying, and there is no comfort in this melancholy of leaving Hejira behind.
Yeah.
Let's just start over again and talk about it again. Come on.
Yeah, I was.
Thank all of you guys. Really so great. Love all you guys.
All right. See you next month, friends.
Okay, bye.
Thanks, Chris.